Chapter 1713, Yuming Pub. Chapter 1713, Yuming Pub. In the eternal chaotic world, gaps exist between different border areas, as well as between different holy kingdoms. Some holy kingdoms were powerful, while some holy kingdoms were weak. For example, the Snow Kingdom that Jian Wushuang first set foot in when he came to the eternal chaotic world was extremely far away from the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, and it belonged to one of the very remote holy kingdoms. Moreover, it was also an extremely weak holy kingdom that did not have many real gods. However, the holy kingdom of real Wushu was absolutely an extremely powerful holy kingdom. Moreover, the holy kingdom of real Wushu and the 16 other surrounding holy kingdoms were all under an almighty. This almighty was known as Sir God Lu'in. The Yuming Mountain was a famous mountain range in the holy kingdom of real Wuxia. The mountain range was famous for its fighting prowess, not because of the fact that impressive experts had appeared from it, or because some powerhouses were present. It was because of the fact that the mountain range was the biggest place in the holy kingdom of real Wushu, where most bandits were concentrated in. The Yuming Mountain stretched across hundreds of millions of miles, and there were more than 1,000 million bandits in it. Among those bandits, there were powerful ones as well as weak ones. The weak ones were normal heaven masters, while the average ones were universe gods, which were great in number. In addition, there was quite a number of real gods within the mountain range. Due to the bandits running wild, the mountain range had a very bad name. On normal days, if there was no need to, many of the cultivators in the holy kingdom of real Wushu would absolutely not choose to go into the Yuming Mountain. However, ever since more than 10 years ago where the universe god known as He Xiao escaped into the Yuming Mountain, the Yuming Mountain had become extremely lively. He Xiao was the universe god who possessed the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. As soon as he escaped into the Yuming Mountain, many experts who had cast their greedy eyes on his 9 Taiqing ancient panacea came to the Yuming Mountain and started to search for him crazily. It should be known that there were too many cultivators who had cast their eyes on the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. Moreover, most of them were experts. This also included many powerhouses and sects of the holy kingdom of real Wushu, as well as the surrounding 16 holy kingdoms. The number of cultivators was uncountable. With so many experts of the powerhouses and sects going into the Yuming Mountain, the bandits within the Yuming Mountain were totally unable to hold their ground against them. Hence, they were naturally affected. However, it was not easy to find a universe god within thousands of millions of bandits. Hence, to date, after more than tens of years had passed, no one had found He Xiao yet. At a spacious main road, which was near the center region of the Yuming Mountain, there was an exquisite pub, and it was called the Yuming Pub. The pub was only built recently, and it was a rest area specially built for the experts who were looking for He Xiao in the mountain range. In addition, much information regarding the Hongming Mountain was also exchanged in the pub. For example, if a universe god who looked like He Xiao were to appear somewhere in the Hongming Mountain, or within any group of bandits, the pub would make this information public immediately. For such a kind of pub, they could be found in each and every corner of the Hongming Mountain. Just then, this pub was extremely lively, and there were at least hundreds of cultivators talking wantonly. Some of them were drinking wine and chatting while some of them were exchanging information. Swoosh! All of a sudden, a blood-robed youth who was carrying a sword landed in the open space outside the pub. After that, he suppressed his aura and entered the pub slowly. "This mister over here, may I know what you need?" A green-clothed young lady behind the counter asked. "Give me detailed information regarding He Xiao, as well as what has happened in the Hongming Mountain in this period of time. Also, give me a bottle of wine," Jian Wushuang said. "No problem, but I will require you to pay 200,000 divine gems," the green-clothed young lady said. 200,000 divine gems were equivalent to all the possessions of a weak universe god. However, to Jian Wushuang, it was too little to make a difference. At present, his social status was that of an almighty. For the 100,000 doctrine gems, which he had obtained from the soaring Heaven King Palace, One of them was equivalent to hundreds of millions of divine gems. The green-clothed young lady gave the report to Jian Wushuang. After receiving it, Jian Wushuang found a random seat within the pub and sat down. After that, he started to browse through the report. Many cultivators within the pub knew that Jian Wushuang had come for He Xiao. However, they were not too concerned about him. After all of them had come for He Xiao as well. Moreover, as Jian Wushuang had suppressed his aura, they were unable to tell how strong Jian Wushuang was, and they treated him like a universe god who was similar to them. Little did they imagine that the person who was sitting with them was a super existence who would be able to make the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu shiver with fear, with a stomp of his foot. Oh, no wonder a universe god like He Xia can obtain the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. So it's like that. As Jian Wushuang looked at the report in his hands, he shook his head. The main reason could be explained in one word: greed. It was not He Xiao who was greedy. Instead, it was the elders of He Xiao. According to the report, He Xiao was born into the He family, which was a big family in the Holy Kingdom of real Wushu. The He family had always been cordial to the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu. Moreover, in the Holy Kingdom of real Wushu, it was definitely a big powerhouse that could get into the top 5 among the powerhouses of the Holy Kingdom. Back then, when Sir God Dan Hong's cave was discovered within the Holy Kingdom of real Wushu, as the cave was too huge, and it contained many mazes, it naturally required a huge number of experts to explore it. Hence, the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu sent many experts under him to explore the cave. These experts included many experts from the He family, and even He Xiao's father was included. After searching the cave inside out, quite a number of experts under the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu had died, but many of the elixirs that were left behind by Sir God Dan Hong were retrieved in the end. However, it was a pity that among the elixirs that were retrieved, the Taiqing ancient panacea was not present. Against that, the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu, as well as the almighty Sir God Lu Yin who was behind him, could not do anything, and they could only assume that Sir God Dan Hong had not left any Taiqing ancient panaceas behind. After all the elixirs that he had left behind were only discovered at the very end, and they were inside 3 Qiankuan rings. As such, no one could steal anything secretly. Hence, this matter was about to come to an end. However, who could have known that the experts who were exploring Sir God Dan Hong's cave would unintentionally discover a secret room at the very end? Moreover, it should be known that the secret room originally contained an opportunity, as well as a total of 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. However, when the secret room was discovered, the opportunity and the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas had already disappeared. This meant that among the experts under the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu, someone had obtained the opportunity and the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. However, they hid them quietly and did not turn them over. Sir God Lu Yin then became furious. At the same time, the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu was also enraged, and both of them started to investigate. With the investigation, they found their way to the He family. It was an expert of the He family. Moreover, it was He Xiao's father who obtained the opportunity and Taiqing ancient panacea in the secret room by coincidence. However, due to his greed where he wanted them for himself, he invited a great disaster to the He family and caused it to be destroyed. Chapter 1714 alike? Chapter 1714 alike. He Xiao is quite pitiful. Jian Wushuang shook his head and sighed. According to the information, He Xiao was the top genius of the young generation in He family. Not only was he talented, his mental state was terrifyingly strong. He had extremely great potential. However, after the news of him privately possessing opportunity and Taiqing ancient panacea spread, He Xiao suffered the calamity of his family being exterminated. Almost the entire He family was killed. Only he managed to escape along with the opportunity and Taiqing ancient panacea. Then, he ran into Yuming Mountain and countless experts chased after him. He was originally a god's favored one, but he was being hunted. He Xiao was of course pitiful. Although he was pitiful, Jian Wushuang wouldn't pity him at all. After all, he was one of those who were chasing after He Xiao. In the pub, Jian Wushuang was drinking alone. At the same time, he continued to flip through the information. Then a dozen figures came into the pub from outside. These people let their auras spread wantonly. All of them were peak universe gods in the third heaven. Among their leader, a brown-haired man was already a void real god. One should know that they were only in one of the holy kingdoms, not a place like the 10 sanctuaries. A real god leading a dozen of peak universe gods in the third heaven. Such a troop was terrifying enough. These people are from Ling family. Ling family? The originally noisy pub instantly went quiet. Everyone in the pub was looking at the dozens of people from Ling family, who had just walked it. Most of them had fear in their eyes. Ling family? Jian Wushuang took a glance at the people. From the information that he had just read, Ling family was like the He family that was exterminated. They were both big families in Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, but they were slightly more powerful than He family. However, Jian Wushuang couldn't even be bothered by the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, let alone Ling family. With a simple glance, Jian Wushuang continued to drink while he read the information on hand. The few of you go away. The brown-haired man, who was the leader of the people from Ling family, looked at the few cultivators at the table before him, and pressed over with his real god aura. The few warriors' faces grew pale from the pressure, and they immediately gave their table up with hesitation. The brown-haired man sat at the table, and there was someone who poured him a drink immediately. Humph, He Xiao, that bastard, he is so well hidden. It has been over 10 years, and we have yet to find him. The brown-haired man roared without any cover-up. Ling family and He family were the two strongest families in Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. They were normally sworn enemies. Then, as He family was in trouble, Ling family was of course the happiest party. Ling family was also the most hard-working party that was chasing after He Xiao from He family. The brown-haired man was burning with rage. He chugged his drink and looked around him. Looking at the gaze of the brown-haired man, everyone in the pub lowered their heads. Only Jian Wushuang was still flipping through the information in his hand. Huh. The brown-haired man's gaze stopped at Jian Wushuang. This person. It wasn't because Jian Wushuang didn't lower his head that he noticed Jian Wushuang, but because of Jian Wushuang's attire. The brown-haired man flipped his hand, and there was a copy of the information in his hand. He was from Ling family, and Ling family knew He family the best. He was also very familiar with He Xiao. Hence, the copy of the information about He Xiao that he had was in much more in detail than the one provided by Yuming Pub. Crimson robe, carrying a sword on his back. Back when He Xiao was wandering, he dressed in a crimson robe and carried a sword on his back, exactly like this person before me. Both of their features look very young too. The brown-haired man fixed his gaze. He had never seen He Xiao before, nor did he have He Xiao's portrait, but he knew He Xiao's attire. He Xiao was good with a sword, and he was crazy about swords. So he always carried a sword on his back. You saw He Xiao once. Is it this person? The brown-haired man looked to a universe god from Ling family next to him and asked. Missed it. When I saw He Xiao back then, I only saw him from afar. I didn't see his facial features. But in terms of body shape and attire, the two of them are quite similar. But He Xiao is running for his life. He wouldn't come to Yuming Pub like an idiot and not bother to disguise himself. The universe god from Ling family said. Humph, we will find out if it is him when we question him. The brown-haired man humped coldly. He looked at Jian Wushuang with a sharp glare. Young man, come here. As he humphed, his real god-level pressure pressed onto Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang continued to flip through the information in his hand, but he glanced at the brown-haired man. You'd better not provoke me. Otherwise you'll regret it. Haha. In Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, who has the capability to make Ling family regretful? This is such a joke. Young man, you'd better take out your Qian Kuan ring for me to check. Otherwise, I will kill you and check your Qian Kuan ring after. The brown-haired man scoffed, but it was doubtlessly a commanding tone. The universe gods from Ling family who stood behind him were smirking coldly too. Then, Jian Wushuang didn't speak anymore, but extended his finger slowly, and pointed in the direction of the brown-haired man. Virum. A shapeless sword intention swept out. The sword shadow looked weak, and didn't seem to be powerful at all. But when it appeared, it instantly flew before the brown-haired man. The brown-haired man was still smiling, but there was a sudden shock in his eyes. The sword shadow flew past his body, then through the universe gods' bodies behind him. Then, the sword shadow quivered and dispersed. Jian Wushuang reined back his palm, and raised his glass to take a sip. In this world there are so many idiots. Even though he is already a real god, Jian Wushuang muttered and remained at ease. The cultivators from Ling family, their bodies stiffened on the spot, and then fell one after another. Then, there was not a squeak, but only blood that constantly flowed out from their wounds. Every cultivator in the pub saw the scene, and their faces grew pale. They looked at Jian Wushuang with an unprecedentedly terrified look. Real God was an absolute superb expert in Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. However, a superb expert was just like an ant when he was killed by the person before their eyes so casually. Such power. These people immediately understood that the young man in the crimson robe, who was sitting alone while he read the information, was truly a top expert. He was at least the level of an eternal real god, or even higher. Chapter 1715 Ling Family. Chapter 1715 Ling Family. The Yuming pub became quiet again. As for the bodies of the experts of the Ling family, some people from the pub came to remove them immediately. However, after that, no one in the hub dared to make a racket. They even dared not to talk loudly, as they were frightened that they might make Jian Wushuang dissatisfied. Jian Wushuang was too lazy to care about it, and he continued to look at the report. However, all of a sudden, the green-clothed young lady behind the pub's counter walked to Jian Wushuang. This lord over here. The green-clothed young lady was modest and she was not too fearful. What's the matter? Jian Wushuang did not even turn his head back. Lord, do you know that the people who you just killed were experts from the Ling family, and that they are only inferior to the king? Throughout the ages, the people who had provoked the Ling family did not have a good life. Thus, I advise Lord to leave quickly before the experts of the Ling family come, the green-clothed young lady said. Oh, thank you very much for telling me. After talking, Jian Wushuang did not have any response. The green-clothed young lady frowned and continued to talk. From the looks of it, Lord seems to be an expert who came from another holy kingdom. Hence, you do not know how powerful the Ling family is. The Ling family itself has more than 20 real gods. Among them, there are a total of 5 eternal real gods. Moreover, they even have a chaotic real god. It's a chaotic real god who can totally become a king if he were placed in some normal holy kingdoms. With such a great force, Lord. I understand. Jian Wushuang only nodded his head like before. Seeing that Jian Wushuang did not have any response, the green-clothed young lady shook her head and stopped advising him. Although the people within the pub were afraid of Jian Wushuang's abilities, they did not leave in a rush. Instead, they were waiting to watch the show that was about to occur. After all, not just anyone could kill the people of the Ling family. Moreover, the people who Jian Wushuang killed were a real god with 10 other top universe gods of the third heaven. Forgetting the universe gods, a real god was like a tower of strength to the Ling family. As expected, in no time, the experts of the Ling family who had gotten the news arrived. This time around, 20 experts from the Ling family had come. Among them, there was a total of 3 real gods as well as 1 eternal real god. After they arrived, they saw the piled-up bodies of the experts of the Ling family, which were unburied outside the pub, and they became furious at once. Who is this person who dared to see my Ling family as nothing and kill my experts wantonly? A loud and furious shout which sounded like a lion roaring resounded throughout the whole pub. The roaring voice then caused some cultivators with weak abilities among the many cultivators in the pub to have no choice but to cover their ears. As the frightening pressure spread, a red long-robed and stalwart old man with scarlet hair walked over slowly under the escort of his group of people. The scarlet-haired old man was the eternal real god among the group of people, and he was also Ling Yan, an expert from the Ling family, who was known for his mighty reputation in the holy kingdom of real Wuxia. Upon seeing the person who had come, many cultivators in the pub revealed a fearful expression, and all of them lowered their heads. In addition, some of them even stood up immediately and retreated to the end of the edge. Only Jian Wushuang continued to sit down on his seat normally like before. The scarlet-haired old man Ling Yan naturally noticed Jian Wushuang straight away. Ling Yan's expression turned grave. Jian Wushuang had intentionally hidden his aura, and normal cultivators were indeed unable to tell him apart. However, Ling Yan was an eternal teal god, and Jian Wushuang's stage 2 ultimate real god was equivalent to the level of an eternal real god. Since Jian Wushuang was of the level of Ling Yan naturally managed to tell him apart. So it's an eternal real god. No wonder he is able to kill Ling Tao and the rest of the people. However, the people of the Ling family are not people who can be killed by anyone. Even if you are an eternal real god, it's still not allowed. Ling Yan bellowed with rage. I have already killed them. If you wish to avenge them, go ahead and be my guest. There's no need for any unnecessary words. Jian Wushuang's voice was ice cold. Haha, what great courage. Seems like I, Iron Lion Ling Yan, have not fought for a very long time, and the dynasty of real Wuxia is about to forget about me. Since that's the case, I shall let everyone know my mighty name, Iron Lion again. Long Yan was extremely furious, and also laughing at the same time. His laughter contained frightening sound waves which spread across the area. Little kid die. With a furious roar, air currents appeared as Ling Yan had already launched an attack. This sound is really noisy. Jian Wushuang shook his head and extended that slender finger of his like before. With a finger, a similar shadow appeared. Previously, this shadow had killed Ling Tao and his group of people right away. At that moment, when Jian Wushuang unleashed it again, he seemed to have pierced the body of Ling Yan instantly. Ling Yan opened his eyes widely, and they were filled with shock. However, his body had already started to fall. An expert of the current generation, Iron Lion Ling Yan, who was famous in the holy kingdom of real Wuxia, was killed instantly. Such a scene caused the people within the pub to be shocked again. As for the experts of the Ling family, they were extremely astonished as well. Go back and tell the head of the Ling family that I do not wish to cause trouble. However, if anyone dares to provoke me, I will not give them any mercy. I have already killed 2 waves of experts from the Ling family. If he has the guts to do so, he can continue to send the 3rd wave over. However, I can guarantee that he will regret it. Jian Wushuang's voice spread slowly as he drank his wine. The experts of the Ling family were shivering in fear, and they did not dare to stay. They then took Ling Yan's body along with them and headed back. Upon seeing that, Jian Wushuang shook his head. He had absolutely no intention of starting trouble, and it was the people of the Ling family who took the initiative to look for him. However, with his abilities, he could destroy countless powerhouses similar to the Ling family with just a flick of his finger. However, doing that would attract too much attention. At that time, He Xiu had not been found, and the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas had not appeared yet. As such, Jian Wushuang did not want to attract the attention of Sir God Lu Yin at such an early stage. As for the Ling family, he did not plan to continue massacring them. However, if the Ling family was not tactful, then he was not to blame. Haha, your abilities are strong. A hearty laugh could be heard abruptly. Jian Wushuang continued drinking like before, and everyone within the pub looked to the source of the voice. A green-robed, middle-aged man who was carrying a green thunder saber on his back had already entered the pub. The green-robed, middle-aged man looked scholarly. However, Jian Wushuang's eyes were filled with a bit of arrogance. I am Delay. May I know who you are? The green-robed, middle-aged man walked to the front of Jian Wushuang and questioned modestly. When the surrounding people heard his name, they revealed shocked expressions. It's Blood Thunder Saber Delay, the person whose abilities are only inferior to the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wuxia. A chaotic real god. Gosh, those people were so shocked that they were stunned. However, Jian Wushuang was still normal like before, and he was not too concerned. Delay. My name is Sword Emperor. Jian Wushuang's voice was dull. Chapter 1716. Team Up. Chapter 1716. Team Up. Sword Emperor? Delay was surprised. Not only was he famous in Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, but he also wandered in the surrounding 16 Holy Kingdoms. Hence, he was familiar with the experts in the 16 Holy Kingdoms, but he had never heard of Sword Emperor. Maybe he is an expert from outside of 16 Holy Kingdoms, Delay thought to himself. Then he asked with a smile, "May I take a seat?" "Go ahead." Jian Wushuang didn't refuse. Delay sat down opposite Jian Wushuang. "You should be here for the 9 Taiching Ancient Panacea in He Xiu's hands, right?" "Yes." Jian Wushuang didn't deny it. It was useless to deny it. As he was already in Yuming Mountain, he definitely came for Taiching Ancient Panacea. It's a pity that although Taiching Ancient Panacea is impressive, it is useless for us real gods. Plus, no matter who gets the Taiching Ancient Panaceas in the end, they have to give it to Mr. Lu Yin. What we could get at most are rewards from Mr. Lu Yin, Delay said. "Why is that?" Jian Wushuang asked in surprise. "You didn't know?" Delay looked at Jian Wushuang curiously and said, "No matter if it's Holy Kingdom of Zhenwu that we are in now, or the surrounding 16 Holy Kingdoms, they are under the control of Mr. Lu Yin. Treasures like Taiching Ancient Panacea aren't something we real gods can have. Mr. Lu Yin spread words long ago. Whoever passes him the Taiching Ancient Panaceas will receive a great reward from him." "That's a reward from an almighty." There was passion in Delay's eyes. Taiching Ancient Panacea contained divine power, which was too enormous an amount. To Sir God or Emperor God, it was extremely useful, but it would be a waste for a real god to consume a Taiching Ancient Panacea. Regardless of if it was expert in Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, or experts attracted from the surrounding 16 Holy Kingdoms, even if they retrieved Taiching Ancient Panacea, they would only offer it to Sir God Lu Yin in exchange for treasure. Even so, it was enough to make countless experts go crazy. Sir God Lu Yin doesn't look for He Xiu himself, but used the experts from the 16 Holy Kingdoms under his control to look for him. He only spread a message, and there would be people sending him the Taiching Ancient Panacea. He is a very wise man, Jian Wushuang smiled. "Do you know how many experts came to Yuming Mountain to fight for Taiching Ancient Panacea?" Delay asked again. "No idea." Jian Wushuang shook his head. "Many. So many that it is beyond your imagination. Not only the experts in Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu and the surrounding 16 Holy Kingdoms, but also many experts from the 16 Holy Kingdoms rushed over. If all of them are added up, the number of real God is unknown. Even the number of chaotic real God is many," Delay said, and there was astonishment in his eyes. "There are so many experts. When He Xiu is found, there would definitely be a fierce fight. I reckon there should be a number of passing rate, even if they are chaotic real gods." "Maybe." Jian Wushuang smiled faintly, but he couldn't be bothered. Real god, so what if there are many of them? Then, Delay seemed to find that it was an opportunity, and he finally explained his purpose in coming. "Although you are extremely strong, and you couldn't even be bothered with Ling family, you are all alone after all. If they were to start a fight, you would not have enough manpower. The Taiching Ancient Panacea wouldn't fall into your hands. Why not you team up with us?" "You?" Jian Wushuang glanced at Delay. "Besides you, who else?" "There are the other 4 experts from the 16 Holy Kingdoms. One of them is a chaotic real god. The other 2 are peak eternal real gods. With you, our team would be even stronger. By then, even if we were to come across the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, we wouldn't have to be afraid," Delay smiled. "I see." Jian Wushuang smiled, but then he shook his head. "I'm sorry. I prefer to be solo. I'm not used to teaming up." Delay's face grew dim. "You should reconsider this carefully. Although you are powerful, and you could even fight against a chaotic real god alone, there are many that could kill you during the fight later on." "I don't know if there's anyone who could kill me, but I don't like to team up with others." Jian Wushuang's face was cold. Delay didn't bother to convince him. Well, good luck. Watching Delay leave, Jian Wushuang continued to drink by himself as he smiled faintly. Delay might be sincerely asking for him to team up, and what he had said was reasonable. If Jian Wushuang was only an ordinary chaotic real god, he would only stand a higher chance to get Taiqing Ancient Panacea if he were to team up with Delay. However, Delay didn't know Jian Wushuang's true power. In the fight for Taiqing Ancient Panacea, Jian Wushuang was only concerned about Sir God Lu Yin. As for the other real gods, he couldn't be bothered. With his power, did he need to team up with anyone? After he talked to Delay, Jian Wushuang thought highly of Sir God Lu Yin's method of doing things. If he was not mistaken, he reckoned that all the Yuming pubs in Yuming Mountain should be operating under the command of Sir God Lu Yin. The information provided to the cultivators in Yuming Mountain by the pub for the cultivators to look for He Xiu's whereabouts. While Sir God Lu Yin himself sat on the fishing terrace, he controlled everything in his hands. Regardless of who got the Taiqing Ancient Panacea in the end, they would send it to him. The only thing that he needed to do was pay some rewards. If the fight for Taiqing Ancient Panacea was really just among a bunch of ordinary real god, even the top chaotic real god couldn't run from Sir God Lu Yin's control. It was a pity that Sir God Lu Yin definitely didn't think that Jian Wushuang would come by. The rest of the time, Jian Wushuang continued to stay in the pub as he waited in silence. He wasn't interested in looking for He Xiu's whereabouts over hill and dale like the other cultivators. He knew that there were so many people who couldn't find He Xiu over 10 years. He didn't think he would be so lucky to find He Xiu all by himself. Plus, once He Xiu was found, unless the person was killed, there would be a slight bit of news leaked, and Yuming Pub would announce it to the public. Then, Jian Wushuang could also instantly know his location and head over to find him, which would be much easier. As for Ling family, when they find out Jian Wushuang had killed Ling Yan, the higher-ups in Ling family were pissed off, but they also knew that Jian Wushuang was an expert who likely could be compared favorably with a chaotic real god. Plus, their main focus was to look for He Xiu. They wouldn't come to make trouble with Jian Wushuang in the near future. Chapter 1717, He Xiu shows himself. Chapter 1717, He Xiu shows himself. In a flash, another 8 years passed. From the time that He Xiu had escaped into the Hongming Mountain to the present, more than 20 years had passed. With over 20 years of time as well as so many experts searching crazily in the Hongming Mountain, He Xiu was still not found. Hence, quite a number of people could not help but wonder if He Xiu was still inside the Hongming Mountain. Or perhaps someone had already found He Xiu, killed him, snatched the Taiqing Ancient Panaceas away, and escaped stealthily after that. Although there were some suspicions, many experts still did not give up. In a gorge of the Yuming Mountain, there were many buildings. This place was a lair of a big group of bandits. Within a secret room, 10 figures were gathered together, and the person sitting at the highest point was a hunchbacked old man with an extremely evil aura. The hunchbacked old man had gloomy eyes. However, his expression was a bit pale. During this period of time, Yuming Mountain has not been very peaceful, and even our men feel a bit restless. The hunchbacked old man slammed his supporting chair, and his indifferent voice resounded within the secret room. After that he looked at a crafty-looking, black-haired youth. Shuehe, I have gotten you to observe the movements of second brother and third brother closely. How has it been? Long Yi, for this period of time, the second leader and third leader have been having secret conversions frequently, and they are extremely secretive. Our people are totally unable to mix in with them, and we have no idea what they are discussing. However, from their movements, they are probably preparing to take action, the black-haired youth answered. They are really preparing to rebel. The hunchbacked old man's eyes were filled with fury and his aura roused, causing the whole secret room to be filled with a cold frost. The second leader and third leader have been restless for many days. But on normal days, due to your abilities, they did not dare to act recklessly. However, this time around, as you are injured, they found an opportunity, the black-haired youth said. 2 thankless wretches. If I had known that this would happen, I would have killed the both of them back then. The hunchbacked old man bellowed loudly, and he was filled with hatred. He was an extremely powerful real god, who stood at the top of the void real gods, and on normal days, he stood by his words within the group of bandits. Even if the two leaders under him were to have some small motives, with him suppressing them, they did not do anything that was out of the ordinary. Hence, he did not take action against the both of them. However, this time around, many experts were looking for traces of He Xiao in the Yuming mountain. Hence, bandits like them were implicated. Not long ago, some experts came to their territory. As those few experts wanted to search the Qianquan rings of all the universe gods under him, they ended up in a conflict with them, and a big fight broke out as a result. Although those few experts were repelled in the end, he was seriously injured, and to date, he had not even recovered 50% of his abilities. Hence, this allowed the two leaders under him to find an opportunity. The hunchbacked old man was discussing with everyone how to deal with the two leaders. However, all of a sudden, the big door of the secret room was kicked open. After that, a big group of people came in, and the people right in front of them were the two leaders. Second brother and third brother, both of you are really going to rebel? The hunchbacked old man smote the table and stood up in anger. Haha, we have been unable to stand an old bastard like you since long ago. Since we have an opportunity this time around, how can we let it go? Since everyone happens to be here, we shall kill of you together. With an order from the two leaders, many of the bandits under them charged in immediately. A great battle burst forth instantly. On the battlefield, the hunchbacked old man's side was definitely at a disadvantage, and it was very one-sided. Under the siege of the two leaders, the hunchbacked old man himself was also in imminent danger. Thus, the people under him were probably in a worse condition. Swoosh! A strange figure was shuffling back and forth in the battlefield. This person was the crafty-looking black-haired youth known as Shuehe. Although he looked ugly, his abilities were outstanding. The black knife that he held in one of his hands was either swung from time to time, or swung cunningly, with an extremely fast speed, and it swept past the bodies of many universe gods. After just a short amount of time, Shuehe had already killed 6 universe gods. Little kid, your abilities are not too bad. No wonder you have such a high position, after joining for only 10 years. However, it's a pity that you have followed the wrong person. Brothers, kill him. After a purple-clothed man bellowed loudly, a total of 10 bandits besieged Shuehe immediately. Those bandits were all universe gods, and there was a total of 5 universe gods of the third heaven among them. With all of them teaming up and besieging Shuehe, he could only retreat again and again in defeat. No, I won't be able to last any longer. Shuehe's eyes were cold, and he was looking at the situation around him. Those bandits had surrounded him from all sides, and he could not find any opportunity to escape unless he could kill all of them. However, with that, I have no choice. All of a sudden, Shuehe's eyes turned cold, and his aura changed greatly in an instant. Originally, he had looked crafty and wretched. However, at that moment, it was just like the hell-killing gods. All of a sudden, a crimson sword swept past the area, and many rays of crimson light appeared in the void repeatedly. The rays of crimson light were like crimson lotuses which had blossomed. The sad, beautiful scenery then attracted the attention of many universe gods around the area. Swish, 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 swish. The sounds of the cutting edge of a sword piercing through bodies could be heard repeatedly. In an instant, the throats of the 10 bandits who had besieged Shuehe were pierced and their lives dissipated. Such a scene then caused those surrounding bandits who were fighting to be extremely shocked. How is this possible? He killed 10 universe gods, including 5 universe gods of the third heaven, with one stroke. This Shuehe is actually so strong. No, that's wrong. Shuehe has always used a black knife as his weapon. When did it change into a sword? Moreover, his fighting capabilities are so strong? The surrounding people were so astonished that they were stunned. Even the hunchbacked old man Long Yi, who was fighting, as well as the 2 leaders, looked over. This is... Long Yi opened his eyes wide. They were not idiots. Shuehi has obviously been hiding his abilities intentionally. Moreover, he had even hidden the weapon that he used. The most important thing was that even his own aura had changed completely. This was a group of bandits, and there was absolutely no need to hide anything. However, Shuehi had hidden himself so deeply, by thinking of the crimson sword that he used as well, as when he joined the group of bandits. Hixiao. He is Hixiao. Long Yi was the first person to roar. Hixiao. The two leaders also cried out in alarm. At the next moment, the three people who were originally fighting stopped, and three pairs of eyes which were burning with excitement looked at Shuehi. It was not fake that they were having an internal fight for the sake of their own benefit. However, these benefits were considered nothing compared to the Taiqing ancient panaceas that Hixiao possessed. Kill him. Capture him. Many of the bandits who were originally fighting madly buried the hatchet instantly and headed toward Shuehi. Run! Shuehi also did not hesitate in the slightest, and he started to run away crazily at once. While running, he no longer concealed any of his abilities. Chapter 1718, Mad Hixiao. Chapter 1718, Mad Hixiao. Yuming pub was still busy and crowded. Jian Wushuang sat in the corner of the pub and drank on his own. No one dared to disturb him. Just then, the maiden dressed in the green at the counter shouted, "Everyone, I just received the latest update. You might be interested." The pub was suddenly noisy, and everyone went to the counter to pay 100,000 god gems in exchange for the update. As for Jian Wushuang, he didn't move, but the maiden in green took the initiative to pass him the message without taking a single cent. Jian Wushuang browsed through the update carefully. He has disguised himself with a sneaky look and concealed his power. He hid his weapon and hid in a thief lair. As there was an internal fight, he displayed his true power and killed over 10 universe gods with one stroke, including 5 universe gods in the third heaven. Jian Wushuang was surprised. According to the information, he was 80 to 90% certain that it was Hixiao. Shuehi. His name had the word Shui as well. Plus, he used a sword and he is powerful. There were 3 real gods among the thieves, but he escaped. Jian Wushuang smiled but didn't hesitate and plunged in the direction of Shuehi. Then, as the news spread in Yuming Mountain, countless experts in Yuming Mountain immediately departed too. Yuming Mountain in the sunny void. Swoosh! A flowing light pierced at a shocking speed, while it was followed by densely dotted rainbow lights that were swift in speed too. Hixiao, you can't run away. Give us Taiqing ancient panacea. Otherwise you have to die. There was a roar followed by another, and the sound shook the earth. Besides the people chasing behind, there were a large number of experts besieging Hixiao from all directions. Among the experts there were real gods, even eternal real gods and chaotic real gods. He was only a universe god. Under such circumstances, it could be said that he was inescapable. My divine power is almost exhausted. I can't escape. Hixiao's face was pale and he felt helpless. It wasn't that he had never thought of consuming Taiqing ancient panacea. It could let his divine power recover quickly. However, looking at the situation before his eyes, there wasn't any use if he were to recover his divine power. As I can't escape, let's bet. There was an unprecedented madness in Hixiao's eyes. Swoosh! He who was originally running away, suddenly stopped in the air. Haha, you're going to stop running away. Offer no resistance. The experts hemming him in from all directions had fire churning in their eyes. The 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. Whoever got them would receive a bounty reward from Sir God Lu Yin. He was an almighty. Any random reward that was given by an almighty was enough for real gods that had no background to go crazy. Just as the experts were getting closer to Hixiao to kill him and take away the Taiqing ancient panaceas. Don't come any closer. Otherwise, I will break them all into pieces. None of you will get them. A low bellow was heard from Hixiao. He extended his hand and gripped a green jade bottle tightly in his hand. He squeezed and the jade bottle, made of an unknown material, suddenly cracked a little. The sight made the surrounding experts' faces change, and all of them stopped. There were many experts among them. There were even a few chaotic real god. They really could kill Hishio easily. However, if Hishio were to break the jade bottle into pieces before he died and shatter all the Taiching ancient panaceas in it, their efforts would all go to waste. Not only would their efforts go to waste, but Sir God Lu Yin would also be pissed too, right? Hishio, why are you still struggling now? There was a sudden cold humph that spread across heaven and earth. Everyone looked at the source, and they saw 6 figures gathered there. Among the 6 of them, there were 2 chaotic real gods, and the other 4 were the top eternal real gods. The leader was recognized in the first instant. It's Delay. It's him. The surrounding experts looked on in concern. Delay was not only famous in Holy Kingdom of Real God, but he was also famous in the 16 Holy Kingdoms, and he was very powerful. On top of that, he wasn't alone, but there were many experts behind him. Haha, even a beast would know what is called a desperate fight, let alone humans. Although I, Hishio, am only a universe god, if I could be chased after by so many experts from the surrounding 16 Holy Kingdoms, I didn't live in vain. Hishio laughed. There was madness in his laughter. However, even if I die, I will not let you gain a petty advantage. Don't all you want the Taiching ancient panaceas? I will not give to you. I can be burnt to death with the Taiching ancient panaceas. Everyone's faces grew grave when they heard what Hishio said. Suddenly, go away! Hishio suddenly roared, and he clenched his right hand. The jade bottle that was in it cracked. Virum! A ghostly figure substantiated about 100 meters away from Hishio. The ghostly figure was a cold-looking woman. Young man, you are only a universe god, but you're quite quick to respond, huh? The woman glanced at Hishio with a tinge of discontent. She was good at assassination. She had originally intended to get closer to Hishio, kill him, and take away the Taiching ancient panaceas, but she had never expected Hishio to notice her. You want to assassinate me? Hishio's gaze grew cold. He looked around with soaring murderous intention. I'll give you a choice now. Either kill this person who tried to surprise attack me, or I will squash the Taiching ancient panaceas. What? The cold-looking woman who surprise attacked Hishio was shocked. He noticed the surrounding murderous gazes fixed upon her. For Taiching ancient panacea, you have to die. Delay turned into lightning and struck. Run! The cold-looking woman realized that she had become the public target, and she couldn't be bothered with the Taiching ancient panaceas. She instantly started running away. However, not long after she started running, a huge hand descended from the sky. The huge hand covered the cold-looking woman and pinched the cold-looking woman like she was an ant. The huge hand exerted strength and crushed her into pieces before everyone, including Hishio. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. A large crowd plunged over. Their leader was a white-robed man. The white-robed man gave out gentle aura and made one feel as though they were showering in sunlight. The one who launched an attack at the cold-looking woman was this person. Chapter 1719. The Only Condition. Chapter 1719. The Only Condition. It's the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, and the person beside him is Ling Tianxiao, the head of the Ling family. The king has actually come himself. Sounds of shock could be heard from the scene at once. Among the many experts present, although quite a number of them came from the 16 surrounding holy kingdoms, the Yuming Mountain was in the Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu after all. Hence, in the Yuming Mountain, the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu was definitely the overlord, and the abilities that he possessed were the most powerful. Delay, I didn't think that you would come as well. The king of the Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu had a vast amount of aura, which was like a rising sun illuminating the universe. Upon seeing the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, Delay's expression turned grave. The person who he feared the most in the fight for the Taiching ancient panaceas, this time around, was the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. As such, he did whatever he could to rope people over to his side previously, so that he could obtain the power required to compete with the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. However, looking at it then, there was still quite a bit of a gap between them. Not mentioning the others, just looking at the side of the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu itself, apart from the king, there were 2 other chaotic real gods, and the total number of chaotic real gods amounted to 3. As for eternal real gods, there were more than 10. Hence, this was something that was incomparable to him. After sweeping his eyes past delay, the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu felt disdainful. After that, his eyes looked in the direction He Xiao. He Xiao, do you know the crime that you have committed? The king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu's voice turned cold, and it was filled with strictness. At the same time, his chaotic real god level pressure was unleashed onto He Xiao. He Xiao felt as though his body was about to be crushed completely. However, he still hung on with all his might. At the same time, his right hand exerted some force, and the jade bottle broke open completely, revealing the 9 Taiching ancient panaceas, which were held by He Xiao in his hands. You wish to force me? He Xiao's eyes were completely red, and he gave a shrill roar. The king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu's expression turned grave, and the pressure that he unleashed dissipated at once. It was obvious that he was also worried that He Xiao would destroy the Taiching ancient panaceas in his fit of anger. He Xiao, you must be certain about your own identity. The Taiching ancient panaceas are not something that a universe god like you can have. Even if it were your He family, they would not have the right to do so. Your father, as well as many experts of your He family, should have served as a lesson for you. If you were to hand the Taiching ancient panaceas over obediently now, I would forgive you and spare your life. If not, you will end up the same way as your father. The king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu shouted. Haha, what a joke. For so many years in the Holy Kingdom of real, my He family has been very loyal to you, and we have done many things for you. But what happened in the end? Just like before, you continued to acquiesce yourself with the Ling family to bully us, and take the property of my He family. Moreover, you even had the intention of supporting the Ling family to destroy my He family. He Xiao's voice was fierce and ear-piercing. This time around, I admit that my He family is in the wrong. However, we did it to protect ourselves. My father merely wished to use the Taiching ancient panaceas to carve out a new path for the He family. If not because of the fact that we would encounter a great disaster soon, why would my He family dare to hide the Taiching ancient panaceas secretly? As for you, because of this matter, you disregarded many years of the He family's cordiality and exterminated the He family completely. King of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu, you are really ruthless. Since your He family dares to betray me, you must be ready to die 10,000 times. The king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu's voice was icy cold. He Xiao, I will give you one last chance. Will you hand over the Taiching ancient panaceas or not? Haha, I refuse to hand them over. What can you do to me? At most, the Taiching ancient panaceas will be destroyed with my death. He Xiao laughed loudly, and he was filled with madness. He had been prepared to risk everything since a long time ago. Such a scene then caused the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu's expression to turn ugly. He did not care about He Xiao's abilities. However, since the Taiching ancient panaceas were currently with He Xiao, if He Xiao were to really destroy everything, it would be extremely troublesome. Not mentioning the fact that he would not receive Sir God Lu Yin's reward. Sir God Lu Yin might even put the blame on him. He Xiao. A voice could be heard, and it came from Delay. He also had a grave expression. In such a situation, you have absolutely no chance of escaping. Tell us bluntly, what must we do to get you to hand over the Taiching ancient panaceas? The people present could tell that since He Xiao did not destroy the Taiching ancient panaceas immediately, he definitely wanted to discuss some terms and conditions. Haha, my condition is simple and I only have one. He Xiao laughed coldly, and his eyes turned scarlet like the eyes of a wild beast, and he looked in the direction of the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu. I will give these 9 Taiching ancient panaceas to the person who kills the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu, as well as Ling Tianxiao who is behind him. As soon as his words left his mouth, the whole void became deathly silent at once. Many experts' eyes were also filled with astonishment. Kill the king of Holy Kingdom of real Wushu, kill Ling Tianxiao. not mentioning the fact that both of them were chaotic real gods. The most important thing was that they were in the Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia, which was the territory of the King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia. Thus, how much power did the King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia possess? Although there were many experts present, quite a number of them were from the 16 other holy kingdoms. Hence, these experts did not have the slightest bit of courage to fight with the King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia. After all, if the King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia were not killed, they would be the ones to die, as there would be absolutely no way for them to leave the Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia. As for the King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia, when he saw the expressions of the surrounding experts, he laughed apathetically, and his eyes became filled with contempt. "Delay, are you going to attack me?" The King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia shot a glance at Delay. At the scene, the only person who would dare to fight him was probably Delay alone. Delay's expression was a bit ugly. If it were just killing Ling Tianxiao alone, it would still be alright. However, killing the King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia. Delay shook his head. He also did not have the courage to fight with the King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia, in the Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia, as it was no different from courting death. "Yixiu, you have seen it as well. Even if I were to stand here for people to kill me, which person present would dare to attack me?" The King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia sneered. Changed to a more realistic condition, Delay also looked over. "No, I only have this condition. I will only give all the Taiqing ancient panaceas to the person who manages to do it. If no one is able to do it, the Taiqing ancient panaceas will be destroyed along with my death." Yixiu roared. "I will count to 3. After counting to 3, if no one takes action, I shall turn the Taiqing ancient panaceas into a waste product." 1. Upon hearing Yixiu counting, the expressions of the people present turned grave. Quite a number of people looked at the King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia. However, they still shook their heads. "Yixiu, do you really wish to die?" The King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia was filled with murderous intent. 2. Yixiu's eyes turned completely red. He had disregarded his life a long time ago. 3. Yixiu blurted out a 3 slowly while holding back. As soon as his words came out of his mouth, his face filled with madness, and he was about to destroy all the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas in his hands. Wait! All of a sudden a cry could be heard. The voice was low, and it reverberated across the whole universe like a clap of thunder. At the same time, it struck the mind of Yixiu, causing his breathing to stop temporarily, and his hands to stop what they were doing. Everyone then looked over. The person who they saw was a crimson-robed young man, who carried a sword on his back, and he was walking over slowly. Chapter 1720, I promise you. Chapter 1720, I promise you. In a crimson robe, and carrying a sword on his back. The attire was really similar to Yixiu back when he was wandering. The incoming person was Jian Wushuang. He had arrived in the void long ago, but he didn't reveal himself. He intended to wait until the fights start to grab the Taiqing ancient panaceas during the chaos, then leave immediately. However, he had never expected that the fight couldn't take place. Yixiu was very careful, smart, and also mad. With him having the idea to burn himself to death together with the elixirs, no one knew what to do with him. He had no choice, and he could only come forward. Otherwise, the Taiqing ancient panaceas would be destroyed. Before the experts' gazes, Jian Wushuang appeared in the void next to Yixiu. "You said earlier that whoever killed the King of Holy King of Real Wuxia, and the head of Ling family, Ling Tianxiao, for you'll give the Taiqing ancient panaceas to?" Jian Wushuang looked at Yixiu with a cold look. "Yes." Yixiu nodded heavily, but the hatred in his eyes didn't diminish. "Besides that, do you have any other conditions?" Jian Wushuang continued to ask. "This." Yixiu was stunned and creased his eyebrows as he said, "If possible, bring me away from here alive, away from Holy Kingdom of Real Wuxia." Jian Wushuang lifted the corner of his lips. He knew that although Yixiu was prepared to burn himself to death with the elixirs, he didn't really want to die. He was truly a god's favored one. Unless he had no choice, why would he be willing to die like that? Your conditions, I promise you, Jian Wushuang said, and turned around to look at the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. He then walked slowly. As Jian Wushuang walked to the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, every expert's face grew awkward. Emperor Sword, Delay creased his eyebrows. He knew Jian Wushuang. He had wanted to invite Jian Wushuang to join his team previously to fight against the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. It was a pity that Jian Wushuang had rejected him. Then, he had thought Jian Wushuang was arrogant. From the looks of him then, he wasn't arrogant, simply insane. There was no one who dared to take action against the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, but he had agreed to He Xiu's conditions to kill the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. You have guts. You killed Elder Ling Yan from Ling family, and dared to appear before me. There was a loud roar, and the one who spoke was the head of Ling family, Ling Tianxiao. Then, his hair was fluttering in the air, and his eyes were burning with rage. However, Jian Wushuang didn't bother to look at the head of Ling family, and his gaze was fixed upon the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, you heard He Xiu's conditions. In order to get the Taiqing ancient panaceas. I'm sorry, Jian Wushuang's cold voice reverberated. Haha, there's really someone unafraid of death. The king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu looked on in disdain. You're only an eternal real god. Just how idiotic can you be? Everyone at the scene looked at Jian Wushuang, as though he was an idiot. Among them there were people who could tell Jian Wushuang was only an eternal real god. How could an eternal real god be so outrageously arrogant? King of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, let me take care of this person, Ling Tianxiao said in a deep voice. He killed the experts from Ling family. I happen to want to take revenge. I never thought that he would take the initiative to meet me. All right then. You can take care of him. The king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu smiled coldly. He couldn't be bothered to fight against an eternal real god. Ling Tianxiao smirked coldly as he spread his fierce aura, and slowly walked forward. Jian Wushuang shook his head and smiled at the sight. Save the trouble. I can take care of you in one go. Then, Jian Wushuang extended his hand, and pointed in the direction which the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, and Ling Tianxiao, were in with his right index finger. Hong! The sky and earth shattered. An ancient, huge finger that gave out boundless light appeared from nowhere. The huge finger that could destroy heaven and earth appeared, and the surrounding void shattered instantly. The entire universe was shaking madly. Ling Tianxiao was originally fueled with murderous intention, but he was dumbfounded the moment he saw the huge finger. The king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu behind him was staring with his eyes wide open too. He was terrified and he wanted to run away, but he couldn't escape in time. Rumble. The huge finger first hit Ling Tianxiao, then continued to charge forward. It pressed past the crowd, then the universe calmed down. Then ancient huge finger dispersed entirely. Just as the finger pressed past the void, there wasn't any figure left, but only flesh that had yet to be crushed into pieces. Then there was a strong blood smell that spread. This. Everyone at the scene was dumbfounded by the sight. Ling Tianxiao, and the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu died? Delay stared with his eyes wide open while he gasped a breath of cold air. Dead? Yes, after one finger point. Not only did he kill Ling Tianxiao right at the front, but he also killed the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu behind him. He also killed the bunch of real gods that the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu that brought along with him. The king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu had brought a total of 3 chaotic real gods, and a dozen of eternal real gods. After the finger point, all of them had vanished into thin air. Jian Wushuang did all that, and he still looked like he couldn't be bothered. He took the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, and the other's Qian Kuan ring. Then his figure turned illusionary, and he came before He Xiu. He Xiu gulped. He looked at the person before him in astonishment. Then, there was an unprecedented thrill in his eyes. Dead. The bastard is finally dead. Ling Tianxiao, he's dead as well. They are all dead. The revenge for He family is taken. He Xiu roared, and there was madness in his voice. He had already been hopeless at first. He had had no way out, so he had wanted to bet with the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. He wanted to take revenge. As for his life, he couldn't be bothered anymore. However, he also knew that it was too difficult to kill the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, within his own holy kingdom. He had only had a little hope, but in the end, it had really succeeded. There was really someone who had killed the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, and Ling Tianxiao before him. The people who you want to kill, I have already killed them for you. Give me the Taiqing ancient panaceas. Jian Wushuang extended his hand, and there was a certain dignity in his eyes. He Xiu's heart skipped a beat, and he looked at Jian Wushuang with admiration and gratitude. He didn't hesitate and passed Jian Wushuang the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas that he had been holding tightly in his hand. You have a clear view of things, Jian Wushuang smiled. He put the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas into his Qian Kuan ring before everyone. If Jian Wushuang wanted to, he could totally kill He Xiu as well. The real gods couldn't do anything about He Xiu, and only be threatened by him. However, Jian Suhuang had only needed a simple soul attack to kill He Xiu in silence. He wouldn't even have had the time to shatter the Taiqing ancient panaceas. It was just that Jian Wushuang didn't do that. Chapter 1721, An Almighty's Anger. Chapter 1721, An Almighty's Anger. Next, I will bring you out of the holy kingdom of Real Wushu. Don't resist. As Jian Wushuang looked at He Xiu who was in front of him, with a thought, his blood mountain sword came out of the scabbard and changed into a lofty mountain instantly. The lofty mountain was filled with special secret patterns, and they covered He Xiu straight away. He Xiu remained silent. He did not resist, and allowed Jian Wushuang to put him in the blood mountain sword. After finishing that, Jian Wushuang's eyes looked around the surroundings. Around him, there were countless experts from 16 other holy kingdoms. Among them there were unordinary real gods as well as chaotic real gods. However, when those experts sensed Jian Wushuang's gaze, all of them revealed a fearful expression. Although they knew that the Taiqing ancient panaceas had already fallen into Jian Wushuang's hands, no one dared to harbor any greedy thoughts. What a joke! Previously, the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu himself had already made them so fearful that all of them did not dare to attack. As for Jian Wushuang, who stood in front of them, he was a super existence who had killed the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu with just a swing of his hands. Seems like this is it. All of a sudden, a deep voice could be heard. After that, a vast amount of dense fog started to gather at the center of the void, and an aquiline-nosed old man was revealed in the end. When the old man appeared, he did not release any aura. However, he still caused many real gods who were present to shiver in fear. Lord Lu Yin. Greetings to Lord Lu Yin. Many real god experts present greeted the approaching person in succession. All of them were filled with respect and admiration. Sir God Lu Yin was the real ruler of the 16 surrounding holy kingdoms, as well as the holy kingdom of Real Wushu. Although the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu was the leader of the holy kingdom of Real Wushu on the surface, in actual fact, with just a word from Sir God Lu Xian, he would give up his position of king without hesitation. For the fight this time around, even though many experts from the 16 holy kingdoms had participated in it, all of them knew that no matter who obtained the Taiqing ancient panaceas in the end, they would be presented to Sir God Lu Yin. Sir God Lu Yin swept his eyes past everyone around him, and his bleary eyes locked onto Jian Wushuang. You are called Sword Emperor, right? Your abilities are not too bad. My Qian Kuan ring has 1,000 doctrine gems and some other treasures. They shall be considered your reward. Sir God Lu Yin took out a Qian Kuan ring and tossed it toward Jian Wushuang. Also, since the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu has already died, a holy kingdom cannot be missing a king. If you are willing to, you can become the king of this holy kingdom right away. Upon hearing Sir God Lu Yin's words, many experts present were shocked. That's Lord Lu Yin's reward. A total of 1,000 doctrine gems as well as many treasures. In addition, He can also become the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu straight away. Oh my gosh! Lord Lu Yin is indeed an almighty as he is really generous. However, it's a pity that the rewards have been obtained by the Sword Emperor. Countless gazes gathered on Jian Wushuang, and they were filled with envy. They were indeed envious of Jian Wushuang. From their point of view, Sir God Lu Yin's reward was too great. For example, even Di Lei's eyes were looking at Jian Wushuang, and filled with enviousness. However, there was nothing that he could do. This reward was given to Jian Wushuang by Sir God Lu Yin, and none of them had the right to get it. However, upon seeing the Qianquan ring that Sir God Lu Yin had tossed over, Jian Wushuang did not extend his hand to catch it. He then glanced at Sir God Lu Yin and laughed indifferently. I'm sorry. I'm not interested in your reward. The only thing that I am interested in is the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. The void, which was originally lively, became quiet instantly. At that moment, the countless gazes, which were originally filled with envy, filled with astonishment. He did not want the reward. He was only interested in the Taiqing ancient panaceas. What is he trying to do? Di Lei opened his eyes wide. Could it be that his ultimate objective of getting the Taiqing ancient panaceas is not to get the reward of Lord Lu Yin? Sir God Lu Yin's eyes turned grave, and he shot a glance at Jian Wushuang. Little kid, do you know what you are saying? Of course I know. I said that I am only interested in the Taiqing ancient panaceas. Since they have already landed in my hands, I will not give them away again. Hence, I will naturally not give them to you. In addition, there is another point. In the eternal chaotic world, there are not many people who have the right to call me little kid. At the very least you, Sir God Lu Yin, do not have the right to do so, Jian Wushuang sneered. What a joke. At that time, he possessed the fighting capabilities of a Sir God, and he was at the same level as Sir God Lu Yin. Since their abilities were similar, they should be talking on equal grounds. Little kid. That was the way an elder would address a junior, or the way a strong person would address a weak person. What great courage! Within the 16 holy kingdoms, you are the first person who dares to provoke me. Sir God Lu Yin was not furious. However, murderous intent flashed in his eyes, which were looking at Jian Wushuang. Boom! The universe shook. The void in front of Sir God Lu Yin changed into waves that looked like a sea of divine power immediately, and headed toward Jian Wushuang. In the places that the waves passed by, the voids were all torn into pieces. Such a scene caused many experts present to reveal a fearful expression. All of them knew that Sir God Lu Yin had attacked. An almighty was furious. As for his way of attacking, he did not use any techniques. He merely unleashed a sea of divine power with a thought. However, as the sea of divine power could destroy everything in the universe, the power that it contained caused everyone present to feel hopeless. An almighty. These are the abilities of an almighty. Some people present could not help but gasp in admiration and roar furiously. Di Lei also clenched both his fists tightly, and his eyes were filled with shock. To them, an almighty was a legendary existence, as well as an omnipotent god. There was only one kind of ending for someone who offended an almighty, and that was death. The Sword Emperor was finished. However, upon seeing the sea of divine power heading over to him, Jian Wushuang placed both his hands behind his hand, and did not move in the slightest. Moreover, he also wore an indifferent smile. Break! He merely uttered a word softly. However, it was like a clap of thunder that resounded across the whole universe. The sea of divine power, which was heading over, seemed to be cut open by a sharp cutting edge, and it was split into 2 halves. In addition, the infinite amount of divine power of the sea of divine power also spread in all directions madly. However, none of it spread to Jian Wushuang. Many experts around the area were extremely shocked. It was an attack by Sir God Lu Yin. However, in the end, Jian Wushuang did not make any movements like before, and he dispersed the attack by merely uttering a word softly. What kind of ability was that? Sir God Lu Yin's eyes squinted and his expression turned grave. Even though you are merely an eternal god, Your divine power is not inferior to mine. If my guess is not wrong, you should be Jian Wushuang. Sir God Lu Yin stared at Jian Wushuang, and his voice could be heard. Sir God Lu Yin, you took so long to recognize me. Your judgment is not really good. Jian Wushuang laughed. Chapter 1722, Jian Wushuang and Sir God Lu Yin. Chapter 1722, Jian Wushuang and Sir God Lu Yin. It's really you. Sir God Lu Yin's face grew dim. He was also a member of Sanctuary Alliance, and he had also heard of Jian Wushuang. But he only knew Jian Wushuang's name and some of his deeds. He had no idea how Jian Wushuang dressed. After all, he shared no relationship with lineage of Star, and he never thought to have dealings with Jian Wushuang. At the beginning when he saw Jian Wushuang, he didn't recognize Jian Wushuang. But the moment he saw the power that Jian Wushuang displayed, an eternal real god who could withstand his attacks so easily, he reckoned that there was only Jian Wushuang alone who could do that in eternal chaotic world. When the experts from the surrounding 16 holy kingdoms heard Jian Wushuang's name, everyone was confused. Then they quickly realized Jian Wushuang's identity. Jian Wushuang, the first place on real god ranking list, Jian Wushuang. Oh my goodness, it's him. First place on real god ranking list. Along with cries of astonishment, everyone finally understood why Jian Wushuang had had the guts to provoke Sir God Lu Yin. The difference between a real god and an almighty was ridiculously vast. In eternal chaotic world, there wouldn't be more than 3 real gods who could be qualified to challenge an almighty. However, Jian Wushuang definitely had the capability to. Jian Wushuang, I should have never offended you, nor should I have offended lineage of Star, right? Sir God Lu Yin looked coldly at Jian Wushuang. You didn't, but I really have to get the Taiqing ancient panaceas. So I'm sorry, Jian Wushuang smiled. If so, there's nothing much to say. I heard long ago that you are known as the top genius in eternal chaotic world, and also an inverse cultivator. You just became an eternal chaotic real god, and you could fight against a Sir God. I'd like to see it in person today. Sir God Lu Yin's face grew cold. What tricks do you have? Go ahead and perform them. Jian Wushuang said with confidence. Excuse my immodesty. Sir God Lu Yin's gaze grew sharp. Hong! The void quivered and a boundless divine power suddenly flowed out. It then formed huge gale dragons in front of Sir God Lu Yin. Every single gale dragon was 100 zhang long. There were more than 100 of gale dragons of that size that formed instantly and roared simultaneously. Then, they pounded at Jian Wushuang among the fierce winds. Jian Wushuang could only feel a terrifying storm pressing at him, and he immediately withdrew Blood Mountain Sword. Virum! There was a soaring sword in tension that seemed to be tearing everything apart. Jian Wushuang stood there facing the wine, but the surrounding people saw his figure vanish into thin air like a sharp sword that was going to pierce the sky. He raised Blood Mountain Sword high in the sky, and there were shrill crimson sword shadows that appeared in the void instantly. Every single crimson sword shadow could destroy heaven and earth, and was sufficient to strike fear in the hearts of the surrounding real gods, including those chaotic real gods. In an instant, there were 61 crimson sword shadows that carried such power, which appeared in the air. The 61 crimson sword shadows appeared, and were immediately superposed onto one another. 10,000 waves break. Jian Wushuang's voice shook the earth, and he slashed Blood Mountain Sword downwards. The brand new sword shadow, made of the 61 crimson sword shadows, suddenly swung out. The sword shadow soared, and instantly tore the gale dragons that were charging towards him into pieces. Then in a short time, it swept out the gale dragon. There were some that were cut across from the middle, and broke apart too. The boundless divine power spread in all directions, but suddenly, there was a hole in the middle of the divine power. A figure stepped out from the opening. He was Sir God Lu Yin. There was murderous intention in his eyes. His right hand became a claw, and he pounded at Jian Wushuang to claw the void. The sharp claw magnified, and it was like a dragon's claw at an unbelievable speed. The claw caught Jian Wushuang, and Jian Wushuang's body instantly shattered into pieces. Sir God Lui wasn't surprised at the sight, but he looked solemn. The one he clawed at was only a shadow. Virum! Virum! There were two ear-piercing noises. Although the sound wasn't loud, Sir God Lui heard it clearly. Then there were two rays of golden light next to him as well. The two rays of golden light were brilliant and extremely fast in speed. Sir God Lui waved, and there were two flowing lights that swept out too. Dang! Dang! There was a loud clash, and the two golden lights were shaken off. However, Sir God Lui took a few steps back before he steadied himself too. Then there were two flywheels that appeared in his hand. One of them was white, and the other one was black. They gave out a unique aura which was quite creepy. In the void before Sir God Lui, Jian Wushuang stood there with one hand holding his sword. In front of him, the two Hongjun golden swords were each on both sides of his body. Those are the golden swords that you used to injure Sir God Qianlan? Sir God Lui glanced at the two Hongjun golden sword, and his gaze was cold. They are quite powerful, but I wonder how are they against my life and death flywheels? Why not give it a try? Then you'll know. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Because he had known that he would run into Sir God Lui. He had already read through some information about Sir God Lui on his way there. He knew that Sir God Lui was one of the top Sir Gods. Compared to Sir God Qianlan that he had fought with previously, he was much stronger, and Sir God Lui was best with his life and death flywheels. The two flywheels represented life and death each, and displayed Sir God Lui's comprehension of life and death doctrine flawlessly. Life and death doctrine, one of the 9 heaven god doctrine, focused on being creepy. Die! Jian Wushuang bellowed, and the two Hongjun golden swords that were floating in the air suddenly shook, and turned into two resplendent golden lights. They burst out and left two golden straight lines in the void. On the other hand, Sir God Lui drove his two flywheels. Swoosh! Swoosh! The flywheels flew past the void, and the speed was shockingly fast too. Dang! 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 The repeated clashing noise rang in the void. Both parties gave full play to their divine powers and comprehension towards doctrines respectively. Hongjun golden sword and the black and white flywheel that represented life and death clashed again and again. Just the overflowing power that spread was enough to rip a huge black hole in the void. Occasionally, the impact spread to the border of the battlefield, and a large number of experts were terrified. The battle was a vigorous fight between almighties. It wasn't a fight that any universe gods or real gods at the scene could get involved in. Even if one were a chaotic real god, they reckoned the chaotic real god might be exterminated by the power of the exchange blows. Hong! 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 The void was torn apart again and again, but it recovered again and again. The battle between the two was becoming white-hot. Chapter 1723, Leaving Leisurely. Chapter 1723, Leaving Leisurely. For you to be able to fight with my life and death flywheels like this, your golden swords are really peculiar. No wonder Sir God Qianlan suffered great losses at your hands. However, although the golden swords are strong and your divine power is not weak, your level of comprehension of the power of Heavenway is too low. Sir God Lui's eyes were glowing with a shrill light like lightning. All of a sudden, his white and black flywheels combined and formed a completely new flywheel. Fusion of life and death kill. Sir God Lui gave a cry. The new black and white flywheel then unleashed an incomparable speed instantly, and clashed with the two Hongjun golden swords. Clang! Clang! Two low, deep sounds could be heard. The two Hongjun golden swords were actually sent flying unreasonably for hundreds of miles. As for the black and white flywheel, it seemed to be not hindered at all, and it continued to head toward Jian Wushuang. What? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. He did not expect the combined power of Sir God's Luin two flywheels to be so powerful. He then released his divine power immediately. Ancient God's secret skill, 8 divine mountains. Bang! 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 Loud sounds could be heard repeatedly. All of a sudden golden lofty divine mountains descended. Every golden divine mountain was 100,000 feet tall, and they were emitting brilliant golden light that was dazzling. Moreover, there was a total of 8 divine mountains. The 8 golden divine mountains appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and acted as 8 protective screens. The black and white flywheel headed over with lightning speed, and the frightening power that it contained destroyed the first 7 divine mountains instantly. However, it was stopped by the 8th divine mountain, the final divine mountain. What strong power! 7 of the 8 divine mountains that I have unleashed with my full power were actually destroyed instantly. Jian Wushuang's eyes were filled with shock. The 8 divine mountains was the only defense-type secret skill among the ancient god secret skills, and it was extremely powerful. When it was unleashed with Jian Wushuang's current divine power, it could stop the attacks of normal Sir Gods easily. However, for the flywheel of Sir God Lu Yin, although the 8 divine mountains had stopped it, the 8 divine mountains had reached their limits as well. Haha, as expected of Sir God Lu Yin. Your abilities are indeed impressive. Today, I, Jian Wushuang, have learned a great lesson from you. I shall take my leave now. A hearty and loud laugh echoed across the universe. The 2 Hongjun golden swords had already returned to Jian Wushuang, and were put into Jian Wushuang's Qiankuan ring. As for Jian Wushuang, he turned his body straight away and was about to leave. You wish to run? Sir God Lu Yin's face turned cold. Don't think of escaping without leaving the Taiqing ancient panaceas behind. Haha, what a joke. If I want to escape, do you think that you can stop me? Jian Wushuang laughed disdainfully. By activating the secret skill Flowing Light Phantom, thousands upon thousands of shadows appeared. At the same time, he also unleashed the secret skill of Dragon Blood. The moment he unleashed the secret skill of Dragon Blood, his speed rose greatly. In addition, Jian Wushuang had comprehended the spacetime doctrine, and he had always been proficient in speed to begin with. Hence, he had already escaped very far away in an instant. Sir God Lu Yin wanted to give chase. However, he was unable to catch up to him at all. In the void, Sir God Lu Yin's figure had already stopped moving. As he looked in the direction that Jian Wushuang disappeared to, his body trembled, and he was filled with dissatisfaction. Jian Wushuang, I shall remember what happened today. Sir God Lu Yin clenched both his fists tightly, and his eyes were filled with flames of fury. In the surrounding void, when the experts from the 16 holy kingdoms witnessed such a scene, all of them had extremely puzzled expressions. In their eyes, Sir God Lu Yin was an invincible existence. However, on that very day, Sir God Lu Yin was made a fool of by someone else, and he had suffered a great loss. Moreover, the person who had caused that was merely a real god. His name was Jian Wushuang, the number 1 on the real god ranking list. After leaving the Yuming mountain, Jian Wushuang slowed down, and he moved forward in the void slowly. Sir God Lu Yin, no wonder he has such a big reputation in the eternal chaotic world. His abilities are really not fake. Jian Wushuang gasped in admiration. In actual fact, when comparing abilities for real, Sir God Lu Yin was indeed slightly stronger than him, and Jian Wushuang agreed with this point. If they were to go all out, Jian Wushuang would only have a slight chance at victory by unleashing all his trump cards. However, Sir God Lu Yin was too careless, and he had allowed Jian Wushuang to obtain the Taiqing ancient panaceas first, obtaining the absolute opportunity as a result. Originally, he had thought that everything was under his control. Without the need to even show himself, someone would naturally present the Taiqing ancient panaceas to him obediently. However, he totally did not expect me to participate in this fight as well. Jian Wushuang laughed. The Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu was Sir God Lu Yin's territory, and he knew everything inside out. He knew that apart from him, no other Almighty was present in the whole Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. Other than that, he naturally did not need to worry about the group of real gods. Even if the Taiqing ancient panaceas were to fall into the hands of Jian Wushuang, he was also not worried in the slightest. It was only after he knew of Jian Wushuang's abilities and identity that he started to feel anxious. However, by then it was already too late. The Taiqing ancient panaceas had already fallen into the hands of Jian Wushuang. Although he was slightly stronger than Jian Wushuang, he was still unable to kill Jian Wushuang. As such, there was nothing he could do to Jian Wushuang. However, if it were another almighty who came, Sir God Lu Yin would definitely be extremely vigilant, and he would have come personally to get the Taiqing ancient panaceas a long time ago. Luck, Jian Wushuang murmured. For him to obtain the Taiqing ancient panaceas this time around, it was indeed partially down to luck. As for him provoking Sir God Lu Yin as a result of that, Jian Wushuang was not concerned in the slightest bit. Sir God Lu Yin was just a Sir God, and at present he was unable to do anything against Jian Wushuang. As for the future, he would be completely unable to do anything against Jian Wushuang. As Jian Wushuang traveled, he left the boundaries of the Holy Kingdom of real Wushu in no time. In a black void, with a swing of Jian Wushuang's hands, He Xiao, who was stored in the Blood Mountain sword, was released. I am He Xiao. Greetings to Lord. He Xiao greeted Jian Wushuang respectfully. His eyes were filled with a great amount of admiration and excitement. Previously, Jian Wushuang had put him inside the Blood Mountain sword, so that it would be more convenient for him to bring him out of the Holy Kingdom of real Wushu. Inside the Blood Mountain sword, he was not restrained at all, and he could see everything that occurred outside clearly. He had witnessed Jian Wushuang and the legendary Sir God Lu Yin fighting clearly. Moreover, they were fighting head-on. However, in the end, Sir God Lu Yin was unable to do anything to Jian Wushuang. It was obvious that although Jian Wushuang was only a real god, his fighting capabilities were of the level of an almighty. Since an almighty was standing in front of him, so He Xiao was naturally respectful. I have already fulfilled your request to bring you out of the Holy Kingdom of real Wushu. Hence, neither of us owe each other anything now, Jian Wushuang said. After speaking, Jian Wushuang turned to leave. Wait, He Xie spoke hurriedly. Chapter 1724, Registered Disciple. Chapter 1724, Registered Disciple. What's the matter? Jian Wushuang glanced at He Xiao. He Xiao took a deep breath, and he then immediately knelt before Jian Wushuang and said, I earnestly request for Mr. to take me on as your disciple. I will definitely serve you for the rest of my life. Disciple? Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. He had only taken in one disciple officially in his life. It was Lin Lan back in Ancient Worlds, who had really formally been apprenticed to him. As for Chun Hu that he had met in Qing Tian Mystery Land during his third inverse cultivation test, although he gave pointers to him, strictly speaking, Chun Hu wasn't his disciple, and he had yet to reach the criteria to be his disciple. However, He Xiao before him. Frankly speaking, Jian Wushuang quite liked He Xiao. He liked him mainly because of his disposition. He was determined. He had a mad heart that was daring to give his all and bet his all. Regardless of if it was when he hid in Yuming Mountains, and the experts from the surrounding 16 holy kingdoms couldn't find him for over 20 years, or when he had made his last best with the Taiqing ancient panaceas, when he had no way to go, Jian Wushuang was in awe of what he did. However, Jian Wushuang didn't intend to take on any disciples. He Xiao, I heard that you're good with swords. Jian Wushuang looked at He Xiao. Yes, He Xiao nodded heavily. Show me. Jian Wushuang looked calm. He flipped his hand, and there was a long sword in his hand. Show me all you've got. He Xiao stood up and looked at Jian Wushuang in front of him. His face grew solemn. He knew that Jian Wushuang had given him a chance. The chance was hard to come by, and there was only one. He had to grasp it. He took a deep breath. Then there was a crimson sword in He Xiao's hands too. The crimson sword looked rather vicious. Suddenly He Xiao moved. There was a sudden crimson light, and it was piercingly cold, yet enchanting. The moment it appeared, it substituted the lights in the universe. He Xiao concentrated his understanding of swordsmanship over the years, and all his power into the stroke. That stroke was already a real god level of unique skill. Looking at the crimson light, Jian Wushuang was surprised. He had originally thought He Xiao was only an ordinary family disciple of a holy kingdom. Although he was a genius, Jian Wushuang couldn't be bothered with a genius in a holy kingdom. When he saw He Xiao's actions, Jian Wushuang realized that he was wrong. Genius was normally found where it was least expected. He Xiu was absolutely a genius. He should have turned into universe god in the third heaven not long ago, but he already created real god-level unique skill. Most importantly, he has already comprehended a slight bit of power of heaven way. Jian Wushuang could clearly feel that there was a slight bit of extermination power in He Xiu's stroke. Although his comprehension level was low, and he had merely comprehended a slight bit, it was impressive for a universe god. 100 universe gods on universe god ranking list. He Xiu will at least be in the top 50, Jian Wushuang complimented as he moved. A simple yet calm stroke, as though it didn't contain any power, but it happened to hit He Xiu's crimson sword. He Xiu's sword momentum instantly dissolved and he staggered. He couldn't help but took a few steps back. How did it happen? He Xiu looked surprised. He obviously had yet to respond. He saw Jian Wushuang's stroke didn't contain much power, nor contain much mystery. He didn't even use any power of heaven way, but he broke his sword momentum so easily. Sword principle. It's his understanding of sword principle. Mr.'s understanding of sword principle is far beyond my imagination. He Xiu clenched his hand tightly, and there was a great commotion in his heart. Jian Wushuang's eyes were twinkling with curiosity too. No matter if it is his swordsmanship, comprehension of power of heaven, or his talent, they are all extremely good. Plus, his disposition is great. He Xiu. Jian Wushuang looked at him. Mister, He Xiu replied politely. You are quite powerful. In swordsmanship, you're highly talented too. You are really a genius that is hard to come by. If it were to be any other swordsman, I think they would be dying to take you on as their disciple, but I'm different. Jian Wushuang said coldly, my focus is to chase more power. I hardly have the time to teach a disciple. If you really want to be under me, I can only take you in as a registered disciple and give you simple guidance. As for if I would take you on as a lineal disciple, it depends on your capability and performance. Are you willing? Of course I am. He Xiu looked thrilled. He immediately knelt down before Jian Wushuang and kowtowed politely. Disciple He Xiu greets master. Get up then. Jian Wushuang waved, and He Xiu felt a bolt of energy that guided him to stand up on his feet instantly. As you are my disciple, you should know my name. I am Jian Wushuang, from lineage of Star. Also, I am an inverse cultivator, Jian Wushuang said. Inverse cultivator? He Xiu was surprised. He had heard about inverse cultivators, but he didn't know much. I'll bring you back to lineage of Star first. As for other matters, you'll slowly find out, Jian Wushuang said. He Xiu nodded, but he suddenly paused. Oh yeah, master. One more thing, it's about this. He Xiu flipped his wrist, and there was a weird-looking jade sword in his hand. The jade sword was made of an unknown jade. Even Jian Wushuang couldn't determine it. The jade sword obviously didn't look like it was for killing, but it should be something like a token. What is this? Jian Wushuang was confused. The jade sword is like the Taiqing ancient panacea. My father found them in Sir God Dan Hong's cave dwelling. My father told me that the jade sword was related to a great opportunity, and he told me to take good care of it. As for what the opportunity is, he had no idea either, He Xiu replied honestly. Opportunity? Jian Wushuang was interested. Then, he recalled the information that Yu Ming Pup provided. It had said that not only did he family receive the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas from Sir God Dan Hong's cave dwelling, they had also got an opportunity, but no one knew what opportunity it was. The people who chased after He Xiu were attracted the Taiqing ancient panaceas, and they forgot about the opportunity. It seemed like the opportunity would be the jade sword. But looking at the jade sword itself, Jian Wushuang had no idea what it represented. Wait till Hall Master Yuan and the others see the jade sword. They might know the origin of the jade sword, Jian Wushuang thought. He Xiu, let's go. Follow me back to the lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang said. He Xiu naturally followed Jian Wushuang obediently. The two of them sat in the spaceship as it traveled to lineage of Star directly. Chapter 1725 Blood Cloud Palace. Chapter 1725 Blood Cloud Palace. Jian Wushuang and He Xiu appeared in a gorgeous and brilliant Milky Way. This is the Milky Way and this is the base of the lineage of star. Jian Wushuang brought He Xiu along with him and walked in the stretch of Milky Way slowly. Along the way, he introduced the lineage of star to He Xiu continuously. As He Xiu listened, he became extremely shocked. Previously, he had grown up in the holy kingdom of real Wushu. Although he had heard of the 10 sanctuaries, he had never really gone there before. It was not until then that he knew how prosperous the 10 sanctuaries were, and a holy kingdom could not be compared to them. For example, the lineage of star was a huge monster to him, and it was many times bigger and more powerful than the holy kingdom of real Wushu that he had been in previously. As Jian Wushuang introduced the lineage of star, he also sighed with emotion. It should be known that tens of thousands of years ago, when Lei Chao had brought him to the lineage of star for the first time, his expression had been the same as He Xiu's. In a flash, tens of thousands of years had passed. At that moment, he was one of the hall masters of the lineage of star, and he was known for his mighty name in the eternal chaotic world. As for He Xiu, it was also unknown what he would become tens of thousands of years later. In no time, Jian Wushuang brought He Xiu along with him and entered the base of the lineage of star for real. They then walked around randomly amidst the group of buildings. Along the way, they came across quite a number of experts of disciples of the lineage of star. When those people saw Jian Wushuang, they became extremely respectful. That's Hall Master Wushuang, the most impressive genius in the whole history of the lineage of star. Although Hall Master Wushuang is not an almighty, he is still superior to almighties. On the real God ranking list, he is ranked first. Some older disciples were giving some introductions or bragging to the new disciples. Of course, they also noticed the existence of He Xiu. Who is that person? Hall Master Wushuang actually showed him the way personally. Even Star Palace disciples don't have the right for him to do that, right? This person should be Hall Master Wushuang's disciple. At once, gazes which were filled with envy looked in the direction of He Xiu. With Jian Wushuang's current abilities and position, there were many disciples in the eternal chaotic world who were fighting to get him to be their master. However, they did not have the luck for that to happen. In spite of that, He Xiu still became his disciple. As such, everyone else was jealous of him. Jian Wushuang brought He Xiu with him and walked randomly around the lineage of star. During the walk, he gave some simple explanations regarding some of the places of opportunities, as well as their uses. After that, he brought He Xiu with him and came to the cave that Hall Master Yuan lived in. Jian Wushuang, how did it go with the divine pond of absolute beginning? Hall Master Yuan questioned straight away when he saw Jian Wushuang. Originally it was very smooth. However, some changes occurred later on. Jian Wushuang gave a simple explanation as to what had happened to the divine pond of absolute beginning. Those dark powerhouses have actually set their eyes on the divine pond of absolute beginning. Hall Master Yuan's eyes squinted. What a pity. If you were given a longer period of time, your abilities would have risen greatly again. It's indeed a pity. Jian Wushuang laughed helplessly. This little kid beside you is? Hall Master Yuan glanced at He Xiu. This is a little kid who I came across during my journey. He is called He Xiu and he is now my registered disciple, Jian Wushuang said. Oh! Hall Master Yuan's eyes brightened. He knew about Jian Wushuang's abilities. For someone to catch the eyes of Jian Wushuang and be accepted as his disciple, even if he were just a registered disciple, he would definitely be not too bad. I am He Xiu. Greetings to Hall Master Yuan. He Xiu greeted him respectfully. This little kid's talents are not too bad, and he has already comprehended a small bit of the power of destruction. As for abilities, he should be able to get into the top 50 of the Universe God ranking list, Jian Wushuang said. Top 50? Not bad, not bad. Hall Master Yuan was beaming with joy. It should be known that not just anyone could get into the Universe God ranking list. Although the lineage of Star had genius disciples in the universe god ranking list, there were so few of them that it was pathetic. For example, when Jian Wushuang was still a universe god, excluding Jian Wushuang himself, there were only 2 other geniuses who were in the universe god ranking list in the lineage of Star. Moreover, the 2 people did not have very high rankings. As for He Xiu, he already possessed the fighting capabilities to get into the top 50 of the universe god ranking list when he had only just entered the lineage of Star. After training for a period of time with the aid of the lineage of Star's resources, he would definitely be able to get into the top 10 of the universe god ranking list. Although his future could not be compared to Jian Wushuang's, there was still a very high possibility of him becoming a top chaotic real god. Such a kind of genius was exactly what the lineage of Star had been looking for. The lineage of Star's rules are strict. Although you are Hall Master Wushuang's disciple, the rules cannot be changed. Hence, you are currently a normal disciple of the lineage of Star. In no time, there will be a battle to become a disciple of the Star Palace. Then, if you were to perform well, you could become a Star Palace disciple and obtain even more resources, Hall Master Yuan said. I understand, He Xiu nodded his head. All right, let me first get someone to bring you around. Hall Master Yuan instructed an elder to bring He Xiu around personally at once. After He Xiu left, only Jian Wushuang and Hall Master Yuan remained in the cave. Hall Master Yuan, this time around, I obtained a special item from the outside. Can you help me take a look and tell me what it is? Jian Wushuang took out the jade sword. After Hall Master Yuan received the jade sword, he played with it in his hands for a while, and his expression turned grave gradually. Jian Wushuang, where did you get this jade sword? Hall Master Yuan questioned. Upon seeing Hall Master Yuan's expression, Jian Wushuang understood that Hall Master Yuan already knew about the jade sword's origin. This jade sword was given to me by He Xie. Jian Wushuang gave an explanation regarding how the jade sword came about, as well as his experience in the Yuming Mountain. Sir God Danhong? It's actually Sir God Danhong's cave? Hall Master Yuan was shocked. Hall Master Yuan, could it be that you do not know about the appearance of Sir God Danhong's cave? Jian Wushuang was baffled. Of course I don't know. Hall Master Yuan shook his head and laughed. Jian Wushuang, since you have joined the Sanctuary Alliance, you probably do not have a good understanding of some matters in the higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance. The higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance refers to a group of almighties, and there are social circles within them. For example, experts who travel alone have a social circle with other experts who travel alone. As for people like us who come from powerhouses, we have our own social circle as well. For Sir God Danhong's cave appearing in the Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, which is outside the sanctuaries, perhaps some of the almighties in the Sanctuary Alliance have already known about it. However, they will not spread this piece of news intentionally. Moreover, Sir God Lu Yin has definitely come by to talk to them. For you to be able to get this piece of news from Sir God Mad Dog, it's also thanks to luck. Jian Wushuang could not help laughing. Indeed, if not for Sir God Mad Dog, he would also not know about the Taiqing ancient panaceas. Sir God Mad Dog was an expert who traveled alone. Moreover, he was extremely strange. Hence, there were many ways for him to obtain information. Then this jade sword is. Jian Wushuang looked at Hall Master Yuan. If I am not wrong, this jade sword should be one of the keepsakes of the Blood Cloud Palace, Hall Master Yuan said earnestly. Chapter 1726, The First Era. Chapter 1726, The First Era. Blood Cloud Palace? Jian Wushuang was confused. Blood Cloud Palace is a special place in the 3rd layer, Hall Master Yuan explained. In the 8th layer, the 6th, 7th and 8th layer are ordinary. The biggest threat derives from Star Demon Clan. However, besides the 3 layers, the remaining 5 layers are battlefields left behind from the First Era or ancient times. Not only are there star demons, but there are also various dangers. Where there's danger, there are of course opportunities. Jian Wushuang was surprised. He knew the 8th layer to a certain extent. He also knew that besides the lair of Star Demon Clan, the 8 lairs were huge battlefields. The battlefields were segregated into 2 kinds. One was a battlefield from ancient times, which was of a higher level, also most mysterious. Among the 8 lairs, it was said that only the first lair was the true battlefield left from ancient times. As for the second, third, fourth, and fifth lairs, they were battlefields left from the first era. The so-called first era was a new era after ancient times ended. Ancient God Emperor, who was supreme in ancient God tribe, was a super expert that was famous during the first era. However, the first era didn't last long because it was destroyed after a huge war. Then the second era started, which was the eternal chaotic world that Jian Wushuang was currently in. Ancient times first era, second era. 3 different eras, but ancient times was the strongest. The first era is far behind compared to ancient times, but it is also far stronger than the current eternal chaotic world. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He knew that the universe that he was in, as they reproduced, and as the time flew past, the overall power of cultivators was sliding down, and sliding down massively. In ancient times, it would have been prosperous. There were countless experts. Whichever one would be a supreme existence in the current era. There were even rumors in eternal chaotic world that said an emperor god was nothing back in ancient times. Jian Wushuang was once in the independent space. He had seen a painting of war in ancient times before Long Qi's master's coffin. The painting showed clearly how scary the experts in the war were. The first era, although it wasn't as strong as in ancient times, had also given birth to a 10-star ancient god superb expert like ancient god emperor. However, in eternal chaotic world, also during the second era, forget about experts who could be compared favorably with those in ancient times. Even experts like ancient god emperor didn't exist. The strongest in the current era was great emperor. It was widely acknowledged. It was because the ancient times and the first era were much stronger than the current era. The battlefield that they had left behind was so attractive to the experts in eternal chaotic world. Many almighties opted to wander in the second to the fifth lair. It wasn't because they wanted to hunt the star demons, but because they were going for the battlefield from the first era. They were going for the opportunities on the battlefield. In the third lair, there were many special places. There are 4 most famous places, and Blood Cloud Palace is one of them. Blood Cloud Palace was left behind by a strong great emperor in the first era. The great emperor could be in the top 3 among all expert of great emperor level in the first era. In the current eternal chaotic world, there shouldn't be anyone who could match him. In the Blood Cloud Palace that he left behind, there are great opportunities. However, Blood Cloud Palace will only open once in a very long time. Every time it opens, only one with a designated token can enter, and that's what this jade sword is. It is said that the token for Blood Cloud Palace are 10 jade swords. There is a total of 6 unearthed jade swords, and there are 4 that have yet to be found. I never expected Sir God Dan Hong, who passed away so long ago, to have had one of the jade swords and been hiding it. Hall Master Yuan sighed. Jian Wushuang heard, and he was complimenting in silence. From Hall Master Yuan's story, Jian Wushuang could tell the value of the jade sword. It was a palace left behind by a top great emperor from the first era. The value should be unbelievably high, if even a great emperor would be tempted. Although the jade sword was merely a token, it was priceless. If he were to take it out, it might stir up a crazy fight among all almighties. Jian Wushuang had only received such a treasure out of sheer luck. Hall Master Yuan, when will be the next time Blood Cloud Palace opens? Jian Wushuang asked. I happen to know, but it's a pity as it is a long wait for you, Hall Master Yuan said. How long exactly? Jian Wushuang asked closely. 8 million years, Hall Master Yuan answered. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Ever since he was born and had started cultivation, it had only been tens of thousands of years. The next opening would be another 8 million years. Maybe to other almighties, 8 million years was nothing, as many almighties could live for very long, far longer than 8 million years. However, to Jian Wushuang it was really a long wait. Jian Wushuang, Although you can't use the jade sword for now, it is priceless. Keep it carefully. Who knows when you might need to use it, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. He then put the jade sword in his Qian Kuan ring, and intentionally put it in an obvious spot. After Jian Wushuang left from Hall Master Yuan's place, he returned to his sword star. In the secret room, Jian Wushuang sat down. There was a jade bottle floating in front of his face. In the jade bottle, there were elixirs that make one's mouth water. There was a total of 9. Jian Wushuang poured one Taiqing ancient panacea out from the bottle. He then consumed it without hesitation. The moment the elixir entered his body, it instantly turned into billowing divine power that Jian Wushuang absorbed and transformed. The speed of absorption and transformation was shockingly fast. 3 days later, in Jian Wushuang's body, the 89th drop of ultimate divine power droplets precipitated, and he expended less than half of the divine power in the Taiqing ancient panacea. Taiqing ancient panacea lives up to its name. This elixir is so efficient. Jian Wushuang was beaming with joy. With less than half the elixir, he had already precipitated the 89th drop of ultimate divine power droplet. If he were to absorb the Taiqing ancient panacea fully, Jian Wushuang reckoned, he should be able to precipitate the 90th ultimate divine power droplet. And he had a total of 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. Although it is said that it will be more difficult in the later stages of precipitating ultimate divine power droplets, I have 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. Even if I can't reach the extreme limit of my divine power, I reckon I shouldn't be too far away from it. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. With anticipation, he continued to absorb the elixir. Chapter 1727, Made a Move. Chapter 1727, Made a Move. In a lofty black divine hall in a vast dark land. Under the protection of many guards which were covered in dim light, a black-robed figure knelt down respectfully and handed a token over. Lord, this is the assassination plan for Jian Wushuang. If the plan is carried out, the success rate will definitely be higher than 90%. The black-robed figure said respectfully. The lofty, dark divine hall became quiet for a long time. Finally, this plan will expose quite a number of things. However, if we are able to kill Jian Wushuang, it will be worth it. Go ahead. A gloomy and hoarse voice could be heard from all directions. It was obvious that the Lord had already approved of the plan. The black-robed figure was extremely delighted, and he started to put the plan into effect. For the 8 layers, the lower the number of the layer, the more dangerous it was. For the first layer to the 5th layer, only almighties dared to travel there. As for the 6th layer, normally real gods traveled there. However, for real gods who dared to travel in the 6th layer, they would possess fighting capabilities that allowed them to get into the real god ranking list at the very least. Just then, at the core region of the 6th layer, an emaciated figure which was covered in a crimson robe was hidden in the void. Under the crimson hood, a pair of strange gray eyes were revealed, and they were looking at the front. At the end of his sight, there was a figure. It was a handsome man who wore a loose and long robe. He was moving forward slowly. His expression was cold, and his eyes looked around the surroundings from time to time. He was extremely vigilant. However, although the handsome man was extremely vigilant, he did not notice the crimson-robed man who was behind him. That's Lei Chao of the lineage of Star. He is only ranked 27th in the real god ranking list. However, he still dares to travel in the core region of the 6th layer alone. He is really quite daring. However, it's a pity that you are someone from the lineage of Star. Moreover, your relationship with Jian Wushuang is not too bad. Hence, I can only say that I'm sorry. While wearing a cold smile, the crimson-robed man approached Lei Chao slowly. In a secret room in the sword star of the lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang had sat down with his legs crossed to train for 3 months. During the 3 months, he had completely absorbed the divine power in the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas. After absorbing all the divine power completely, Jian Wushuang had a puzzled expression. In his body, there were ultimate divine power water droplets floating about. By counting them, there was a total of 90 droplets of ultimate divine power. That's right. There were 99 droplets, and he was only one droplet away from the 100 ultimate divine power water droplets needed to make a breakthrough to stage 3 ultimate real God. Moreover, for the last droplet, he had accumulated quite a great portion of it, and only a small portion was left. It was just a little bit more. He was just one step away from precipitating the 100th droplet of ultimate divine power. In the end, it is still lacking slightly, Jian Wushuang murmured. Although he felt that it was a pity, he was not too concerned. After all, the effects of the 9 Taiqing ancient panaceas had already exceeded his expectations. The current him only lacked a small portion of divine power. For this small portion of divine power, he did not need any opportunities. By just relying on his own training, or absorbing the demon cores that he had obtained back then, he would probably be able to make a breakthrough. 1,000 years. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly, and his eyes glowed brilliantly. For the current him, by relying on the Hongjun golden swords, as well as the many unique skills and secret skills of the ancient god, he could gain a firm foothold among the Sur gods, and he was very close to the top. However, if he were able to take another step forward and achieve stage 3 ultimate real god, his divine power and body would achieve the level of an emperor god. By then his abilities as a whole would rise greatly. I cannot rush. I must take it slow and go with the flow. Jian Wushuang laughed. After that he walked out of the secret room. After walking out of the secret room, Jian Wushuang got the news that Elder Wu Liang had come. Moreover, he had also been waiting for him in the Sword Star for quite a few days. Within a lofty hall, Elder Wu Liang. Jian Wushuang wore a smile and walked toward Elder Wu Liang. Hall Master Wushuang. Elder Wu Liang was filled with respect. However, he also had mixed feelings. It should be known that thousands of years ago, he had invited Jian Wushuang to help them to hunt down real god Shiju. As for Jian Wushuang, after he had obtained the token of the Fairy Palace's legacy from real god Shiju, he joined the Sanctuary Alliance officially. After that, in a short thousands of years, he had risen greatly. To date, Jian Wushuang could compete against an almighty, and he was one of the hall masters of the lineage of Star. Hence, Jian Wushuang was an existence that he looked up to. Elder Wu Liang, since you have come to look for me, is there something wrong? Jian Wushuang questioned while laughing. There's a matter and it is related to you, Elder Wu Liang said. Oh. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. It's like this. A few days ago, someone from the Parting Hatred Island sent a message over saying that a cultivator from the lineage of Star had been captured by them after killing their disciples. At present, she is being imprisoned in the Parting Hatred Island. After taking into account the fact that she is from the lineage of Star, they did not kill her on the spot. Instead, they wanted to have a discussion with the lineage of Star with regards to how to resolve the problem, Elder Wu Liang said. Just like that, Jian Wushuang had a perplexed expression. This should be a small matter that was too insignificant to mention. Hence, wouldn't it be insufficient to make him feel alarmed? Could it be that the cultivator is someone who I know? Jian Wushuang questioned. That's right. She's called Qiuyu and she is your maid, Elder Wu Liang said. Jian Wushuang's expression changed at once. Qiuyu. She was the housekeeper of the Sword Star. As Jian Wushuang had always been traveling outside, Qiuyu had been in charge of taking care of the Sword Star. Qiuyu had always been loyal to Jian Wushuang. As such, Jian Wushuang was not stingy, and he had given her quite a lot of training resources. Moreover, not long ago, Qiuyu had gone out to train as she had encountered a bottleneck, and to date, she had still not returned. However, who could have known that Qiuyu had actually been captured by the Parting Hatred Island? Elder Wu Liang, what is the background of the Parting Hatred Island? Jian Wushuang questioned. He had some understanding of some extremely powerful big powerhouses and big sects within the Sanctuary Alliance. However, he had never heard of the Parting Hatred Island. The Parting Hatred Island is a powerhouse within the Purple Moon Sanctuary. However, it is not considered a big powerhouse. Within the Parting Hatred Island, there is not even one almighty, and it cannot be compared to the lineage of Star, Elder Wu Liang said. However, the Parting Hatred Island is not in the Star Land. Moreover, Qiuyu, who has been captured, is not a disciple of the lineage of Star. Instead, she is a normal cultivator. Thus, the Parting Hatred Island had the guts to capture her, and they even sent a message over saying that they will give her a small punishment. Jian Wushuang understood. If it were a disciple of the lineage of Star, or a genius disciple of the Star Palace, the Parting Hatred Island would not have the guts to punish him. However, Qiuyu was merely a maid, and her position was considered extremely low in the lineage of Star. Therefore, the Parting Hatred Island naturally dared to punish her. Elder Wu Liang, did you find out why Qiuyu wanted to kill the disciples of the Parting Hatred Island? Jian Wushuang questioned. I have found out about it. It's because of the fact that a universe god in the Parting Hatred Island is her sworn enemy. She once had an older brother who died at the hands of that universe god in the Parting Hatred Island. As such, Qiuyu took action against them. However, it's a pity that she was captured by the experts of the Parting Hatred Island before she was able to kill the universe god, Elder Wu Liang said. Chapter 1728, Parting Hatred Island. Chapter 1728, Parting Hatred Island. I see. Jian Wushuang understood. This girl, why didn't she tell me she was in trouble? Qiuyu was Jian Wushuang's maidservant, and she had Jian Wushuang's communication token. During the time she was training, Jian Wushuang would send her messages to ask about her progress occasionally. Qiuyu could totally send him a message about what happened, or just use his name, when she was caught in Parting Hatred Island. Then, Parting Hatred Island wouldn't dare to do anything. However, Qiuyu didn't. She had only said that she was from lineage of Star. Elder Wu Liang, please send a message to Parting Hatred Island. Tell them that lineage of Star will send an expert over to discuss it. Tell them to not touch a single strand of Qiuyu's hair before the expert from lineage of Star arrive, Jian Wushuang said. All right. As long as we have lineage of Star command it, Parting Hatred Island won't have the guts to lay a finger on Qiuyu. Elder Wu Liang smiled. Oh yeah, why don't I send a deacon elderly over to take care of this? Or I'll head over myself. It's all right. Jian Wushuang shook his head. I'll go. You'll go? Elder Wu Liang stared. Parting Hatred Island wasn't a great force within Purple Moon Sanctuary. They were merely had two chaotic real gods. Lineage of Star could send any deacon elderly over, and bring Qiuyu back easily. Jian Wushuang was in such a distinguished position. Go and send the message. I'll depart now. Jian Wushuang didn't delay, but departed in the direction of the Parting Hatred Island sect. On the other hand, Elder Wu Liang sent a message to Parting Hatred Island as instructed by Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang only took a few days' time to reach Parting Hatred Island via wormhole. This is Parting Hatred Island. Jian Wushuang overlooked a huge island covered by a formation. Even though it was only a second-grade force in the 10 sanctuaries, the sect looked quite dignified. Jian Wushuang's body turned illusionary and appeared before Parting Hatred Island's entrance. There were a few disciples guarding at the entrance. Please report to your higher-ups that Jian Wushuang from Lineage of Star is here to visit. Jian Wushuang smiled. Please hang on a moment. The registered disciples of Parting Hatred Island were only universe gods. They weren't experienced, and they had never heard of Jian Wushuang's name. However, they should be able to tell that Jian Wushuang was a real god. As a real god came to visit personally, they couldn't behave sloppily, and immediately went into the island to report. Jian Wushuang wasn't in a hurry, and was waiting patiently at the entrance. With his power, he could totally barge into Parting Hatred Island, and bring Qiuyu away forcibly. The experts in Parting Hatred Island definitely wouldn't dare to say a word. After all, Jian Wushuang was from Lineage of Star, and he had to keep Lineage of Star's reputation and appearance. Lineage of Star wasn't barbaric, like Soaring Heaven King Palace. In Parting Hatred Island, An elderly in a red robe was casually walking around. "Greetings, elder." The registered disciple who walked past bowed politely at him. The elderly in a red robe nodded faintly, and he was happy. Just then, the disciple who came in to report sped past. When he saw the elderly in a red robe, he quickly moved over. "Elder Dong, there's a mister outside who said that he is here to visit." The disciple was polite. "Mister?" The elderly in a red robe looked at the disciple. "He is a real god, and he said that he is from lineage of star. His name is Jian Wushuang, I think," the disciple said. "Who you said?" At first, the elderly in a red robe was very calm, but his eyes suddenly shot open, and his voice became excited. "Are you sure you didn't hear wrongly? Is he really Jian Wushuang?" "Yes, I'm sure." The disciple was shocked, but he replied determinedly. The elderly in a red robe immediately gasped a breath of cold air and muttered, "There are countless cultivators in eternal chaotic world, and there are also many named Jian Wushuang. However, a Jian Wushuang from lineage of star, there's only one. It's that monster." The elderly in a red robe looked terrified. "Quick, follow me to welcome him." "Yes." The disciples immediately nodded. "Hold on." The elderly in a red robe suddenly paused. "Wait here. Let me inform the island master. We will all go to welcome him together when island master and the rest come." The elderly in a red robe knew clearly how big of a figure Jian Wushuang was. He had the fighting power of an almighty. Such a super expert had come to visit Parting Hatred Island. It was simply bringing radiance to their humble sect. He of course couldn't welcome such a great expert alone. As the elderly in a red robe reported the news, the entire Parting Hatred Island shook. The master of Parting Hatred Island, including the 3 vice masters, and a bunch of experts on the island, came to welcome him all together. Outside the island, Jian Wushuang saw a huge crowd walking over after waiting for a while. There were at least 20 to 30 of them, and they were all real gods. The one leading them was, of course, the master of Parting Hatred Island. Such a big crowd. Jian Wushuang smiled, but he wasn't surprised. The crowd came before Jian Wushuang very quickly. "Master of Parting Hatred Island greets Mr. Jian Wushuang." The master of Parting Hatred Island bowed politely. The real gods behind him greeted and bowed at Jian Wushuang politely to show their respect. "You are too courteous," Jian Wushuang smiled. "Mr. Jian Wushuang, follow me into the island, and we can talk," the master of Parting Hatred Island invited. Jian Wushuang nodded. Then, he entered Parting Hatred Island, under the lead of the master of Parting Hatred Island himself. As they walked in, the experts in Parting Hatred Island lifted their head to steal glances at Jian Wushuang. There was excitement and reverence in their eyes. As for Jian Wushuang, they had heard long ago that he had fought with Soaring Heaven King Palace in the 8th lair, and they had suffered a great loss. He had even inflicted a severe injury on Sir God Qianlan from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Besides, during the battle, Jian Wushuang killed many top chaotic real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace. To Parting Hatred Island, any top chaotic real god wasn't one that they could offend easily. However, Jian Wushuang had massacred top chaotic real gods like he was slaughtering chickens. Such a superb existence could destroy Parting Hatred Island countless times with a wave. Very soon, Jian Wushuang arrived in the discussion hall of Parting Hatred Island. At the highest position of the hall, he sat side by side with the master of Parting Hatred Island. The master of Parting Hatred Island might even be slightly lower. "Mr. Jian Wushuang, I wonder what's the purpose of your visit to Parting Hatred Island?" The master of Parting Hatred Island asked politely. "I really came for a purpose," Jian Wushuang smiled. "Not long ago, there was someone from lineage of Star that killed a few disciples of Parting Hatred Island. Now she is held by the experts of Parting Hatred Island and imprisoned in Parting Hatred Island. I came here today for her." Jian Wushuang expressed his intention straightforwardly. Chapter 1729 Jian Wushuang's Maid. Chapter 1729 Jian Wushuang's Maid. After knowing Jian Wushuang's objective for coming, The experts in the Parting Hatred Island had puzzled expressions. How can I not know that my Parting Hatred Island imprisons someone from the lineage of Star? Elder Li Yin, what's going on? The Parting Hatred Island master's eyes turned cold, and he looked at the red-robed old man known as Li Yin. Although he was the island master, he had left most of the small matters in the Parting Hatred Island to Li Yin. For example, he indeed had no idea of the matter this time around. Island master, there is indeed such a matter. However, I did an investigation previously. That woman is merely a normal maid of the lineage of Star. However, she has killed quite a number of the Parting Hatred Island's disciples. Hence, I got people to capture her, and I also sent a message to the lineage of Star to discuss this matter together. Li Yin broke out in a cold sweat. Previously, he had gotten the news that an expert from the lineage of Star would come over to discuss about this matter. However, he totally did not expect that the person who would come from the lineage of Star would be Jian Wushuang. That woman is a maid under me. Moreover, she is a maid who I like the most, Jian Wushuang said bluntly. Upon hearing that, the expressions of many experts of the Parting Hatred Island, as well Li Yin, changed greatly. They could not care less if it were a normal maid from the lineage of Star. However, what if it were Jian Wushuang's maid? Moreover, if it was a maid who he liked the most, then it would be different. Lord Jian Wushuang, the Parting Hatred Island master stood up and said straight away, Lord, please forgive us for our crime. The Parting Hatred Island did not know about the relationship between that woman and the Lord in advance. If I'd known, even if I were able to pluck up even more courage, I would definitely not dare to make things difficult for her. Yes, my lord. Back then, when we captured that woman, she only said that she was a maid of the lineage of Star, and she did not reveal her relationship to you, Li Yin said immediately. For this matter, they indeed had no idea about it. It's all right. Jian Wushuang waved his hands. Please bring her over first. Get down to it right away. The Parting Hatred Island master shot a glance toward Li Yin. Understood. Li Yin left immediately. Lord Jian Wushuang, for this matter. The Parting Hatred Island master still wanted to say something. Let's continue talking after she comes, Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Upon seeing that, the Parting Hatred Island master stopped speaking, and he could only wait quietly at his position. Within the Parting Hatred Island, there was a lofty palace. The palace was the law enforcement hall of the Parting Hatred Island. For an expert or disciple who had committed a crime within the Parting Hatred Island, or had caused some trouble outside, he would be sent to the law enforcement hall for his punishment. In a secret room in the inner part of the law enforcement hall. At the center of the secret room was a seal. Within the seal, a beautiful woman with a great figure was sitting down with her legs crossed. The beautiful woman was Jian Wushuang's maid Qiuyu. At present, Qiuyu's expression was a bit pale, and her aura was weak. She was in quite a miserable state. In front of the seal, there was a chair. In the chair sat a young man who wore a luxurious long robe with a jade-like face, and one of his legs was stuck over the other. As he looked at Qiuyu, who was inside the seal, his eyes were filled with relish. Hee, I did not expect that piece of trash who died back then to have such a good little sister. Not only are you pretty, your talents are also not too bad. However, it's a pity that you are still a bit lacking. If you were a bit stronger, you might have been able to take revenge for that trashy brother of yours. Qiuyu's icy cold eyes were staring at the young man, and she was filled with dissatisfaction. Just a bit more, and she would have been able to kill the person in front of her and gotten revenge for her brother. Why? Are you dissatisfied? The young man laughed evilly. No matter how dissatisfied you are, it's useless. You will never have a chance again. Although you are someone from the lineage of Star, you are still a normal maid in the end. Since your position is too low, the lineage of Star will absolutely not care about your fate. The Parting Hatred Island has merely sent the lineage of Star a message to find a way out of their situation. After that, even if the Parting Hatred Island were to kill you, the lineage of Star would not say anything. Hence you're dead. Moreover, I would kill you personally. You would look on as I stab my saber into your heart. There would not be any room for you to struggle." The young man's voice echoed within the secret room repeatedly. Upon hearing that, Qiu, who was in the seal, laughed coldly, and her eyes were filled with disdain. Although she was currently captured alive by the Parting Hatred Island, she knew that the Parting Hatred Island would definitely not kill her. The reason being, that was that her master was Jian Wushuang. With such an identity, the lineage of Star would absolutely not leave her alone. Why? Even though you are already in such a situation, do you think that you will be able to continue living? The young man swept his eyes over Qiu with ridicule. However, just then the big door of the secret room opened abruptly. After that, escorted by some disciples, the red-robed old man, Li Yin, walked inside anxiously. "Elder Li Yin, why have you come?" The young man stood up immediately and revealed a friendly smile. He was completely different from before. Upon seeing the young man in front, Li Yin became filled with anger, and he swung his hand fiercely. Slap! A clear, melodious sound of a slap could be heard. The young man spit out a mouthful of blood at once, and his body was sent flying ruthlessly. "Damn little kid!" Li Yin scolded with a low voice. He was too lazy to take another glance at that young man, and he walked straight to the front of the seal. The flames of fury that Li Yin originally had became non-existent, and he revealed a gentle smile. "Miss Qiu, please leave with me." "Where are we going?" Qiu asked. "To the big hall. Lord Jian Wushuang is waiting for you there," Li Yin said. "Master." Qiu's body shook at once. "Master has actually come himself." In no time, Li Yin got rid of the seal and showed Qiu to the big hall. At the same time, he looked at the astonished young man who was hiding at the corner of the wall again. "Mo Tao, follow us as well. This matter happened because of you. Now that you have caused trouble, don't think that we will let you off with just a slap." I. Before the young man Mo Tan could even say anything, he was taken away by two disciples of the Parting Hatred Island forcibly, and they headed to the big hall together. In the big hall, Jian Wushuang and the Parting Hatred Island master were sitting at its highest point, and they were looking at Qiu, Mo Tao, and the few people who walked in. "Master." Qiu greeted Jian Wushuang immediately, and she had mixed feelings. She did not send a rescue message to Jian Wushuang at the start, as she did not want to disturb him. After all, she was just a lowly maid. Moreover, she had merely provoked the Parting Hatred sect, and it was a small matter that was too insignificant to be brought up. Hence, it could be resolved with the lineage of Star showing themselves. However, Qiu did not expect Jian Wushuang to come personally. As Jian Wushuang looked at Qiu, his eyes turned grave. It was not because of the fact that he had seen Qiu's injuries. Instead, it was because of the fact that he had seen the aura that she was emitting. Her aura had achieved the level of a real god. Chapter 1730. Ask for help. Chapter 1730. Ask for help. Breakthrough. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Previously, Qiu went out for training in order to break through and become real god. Then she really broke through. In actual fact, it was fortunate that Qiu broke through and became a real god, and that Parting Hatred Island had scruples. If Qiu were to only be a universe god, and as she was only a maidservant, Parting Hatred Island would have killed her long ago. "There's an elixir here. Eat it and rest up by the side." Jian Wushuang waved and passed her an elixir. The elixir wasn't cheap, and it was for a Sir God to recover from injury. Qiu took the elixir and consumed it immediately. Then she walked to the side obediently. There were immediately experts from Parting Hatred Island who gave her a seat. "Master of Parting Hatred Island, how many of your disciples did my maidservant kill?" Jian Wushuang asked casually. "Li Yin." The master of Parting Hatred Island looked at Li Yin. "Island master, there were 6 disciples from Parting Hatred Island that had died at the hands of the lady. However, they were all ordinary disciples, and they were all universe gods," Li Yin answered. 6 deaths. Jian Wushuang heard, and he took out a Qian Kuan ring. "I am not strict in discipline. There are treasures in Qiankuan Ring. Consider it an apology to Parting Hatred Island. How could we accept your apology? The master of Parting Hatred Island stood up hastily, but didn't dare to take the Qiankuan Ring. I told you to take it. Just take it, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Yes. The master of Parting Hatred Island nodded politely as he accepted the Qiankuan Ring. However, with no surprise, I, Jian Wushuang, have always been a clear-cut person. My maidservant killed your men in Parting Hatred Island, and I should apologize. Now that I have apologized, we should talk about the resentment between my maidservant and the disciples of Parting Hatred Island. Jian Wushuang's face grew cold. Every expert of Parting Hatred Island at the scene was stunned. They knew that Jian Wushuang wouldn't just let it slip and take the initiative to apologize. They guessed it. Then, Jian Wushuang wanted to clear the debt. Mr. Jian Wushuang, Mo Tao is here. You can go ahead and bring him along, the master of Parting Hatred Island said. The surrounding experts of Parting Hatred Island didn't hesitate either. At such a crucial moment, pushing their disciple just like that might not be appropriate. However, regardless of where one was in the world, they look at one's power. Jian Wushuang's power was proven. Forget about taking away one disciple who was only a universe god. Even if he were to kill two real gods on the spot, he definitely wouldn't dare to utter a single word. It's unnecessary for me to bring him straight away. It is merely a fight between the juniors. Lineage of Star isn't as barbaric as Soaring Heaven King Palace. Jian Wushuang smiled. How about this? As the two of them harbor deep hatred against one another, let them fight a life and death battle in Parting Hatred Island. Life and death battle? The experts in Parting Hatred Island were stunned. A life and death battle must be determined by life and death. As for who will be dead and who will be alive, that depends on their capabilities. Although Qiu is my maidservant, I will have nothing to say, but I'd leave if she were to die at the hands of your disciple in Parting Hatred Island, Jian Wushuang said. I understand. Let's do as Mr. has suggested. The master of Parting Hatred Island nodded with a smile. However, Mo Tao, who was lying prostrate on the ground, was terrified. He shouted, No, Island Master. You can't let me fight a life and death battle with her. I am only a universe god, but she already broke through and became real god. This is unfair. This is an unfair battle. Mo Tao roared, but the surrounding crowd didn't do anything. They looked at him with pity. Unfair. Yes, the battle was really unfair. So what? In the world, where was absolute fairness, everything was decided with power. Plus, Jian Wushuang was nice enough to give him a chance. If it was someone else, he would have been killed with one slap. The life and death battle started before long. Parting Hatred Island was at a disadvantageous position in the battle after all. So the higher up in Parting Hatred Island didn't breathe a word of it to anyone, nor did many disciples watch the battle. The end result was that naturally there was no suspense. Qiu's injury recovered after consuming the elixir that Jian Wushuang had given. She took out about 70% of her power. As for Mo Tao, he was only an ordinary universe god in the third heaven, so he was naturally killed easily. When the dispute was settled, Mr. Jian Wushuang, I have already arranged a banquet for you. Would you like to stay and have a drink? The master of Parting Hatred Island was polite. Banquet? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. In front of the experts in Parting Hatred Island, she had killed the disciple of Parting Hatred Island. Not only did the experts on Parting Hatred Island not get angry, they were also courteous to him. They had even prepared a banquet for him. They obviously wanted to curry favor with him. Power, Jian Wushuang sighed. He knew clearly that it was because of his power. At first, Jian Wushuang didn't intend to reject him, but suddenly, Jian Wushuang, hurry up and come back. Something happened. Hall Master Yuan sent an urgent message. Jian Wushuang's face instantly grew grave. I appreciate Island Master's kindness, but I have other matters to attend to and I shall not stay back, Jian Wushuang said. Then he didn't bother with the experts on Parting Hatred Island, and he immediately took Qiu with him and left. They didn't talk much on the way and sped through the journey. Jian Wushuang arrived at Lineage of Star very soon. After he settled Qiuyu, Jian Wushuang immediately came to Hall Master Yuan's cave dwelling. He saw Hall Master Yuan, as well as Hall Master Guoxian. Hall Master Yuan, Hall Master Guoxian, what happened? Jian Wushuang asked. From the message that Hall Master Yuan sent, he could tell that there must be something major happening in Lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang, go through the message in this token. Hall Master Yuan passed Jian Wushuang a token. Jian Wushuang took it and briefly skimmed through it. Then his eyes shot wide open. The message in the token was a message asking for help. The message was sent by the one who had been wandering in the 6th lair all this while. Lei Chao. Back then, Lei Chao had guided Jian Wushuang to Lineage of Star personally. He had also taken care of Jian Wushuang when Jian Wushuang wasn't that powerful. Lei Chao was asking for help. Lei Chao, he is stuck in Buddhist Demon Sea? Jian Wushuang looked terrified. He was familiar with the 8th lair to a certain extent. He knew that there were places that were more dangerous and required more attention in every lair. Just like the dark regions in the 8th lair and the dark ravine in the 7th lair, he had looked into them carefully before. As for the 6th lair, he knew quite a bit about it. In the core of the 6th lair, even an expert on real god ranking lists stood the possibility of passing when he wandered there. Besides, there were a few places that were full of danger, that a real god definitely would die in if he barged in. Even to an almighty it was dangerous. Among the few places, the one with the greatest reputation was Buddhist Demon Sea. Chapter 1731. The fish has taken the bait. Chapter 1731. The fish has taken the bait. The Buddhist Demon Sea was a forbidden area to real gods. Even among almighties, normal almighties would not dare to go in there easily. It was said that even emperor gods could be killed in the deepest part of the Buddhist Demon Sea. How can that be? Lei Chao has been traveling the 6th lair for so long, and it is not as if he does not know about the Buddhist Demon Sea. Why has he gone into the Buddhist Demon Sea? Jian Wushuang said while frowning. Under normal circumstances, Lei Chao would definitely not go to the Buddhist Demon Sea. However, Lei Chao is being chased by someone, and he had no choice but to go in, Hall Master Yuan said. He is being chased by someone. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Who is it? Old freak Sui Gu, an extremely powerful Sir God expert who is very ruthless, Hall Master Guoxian said. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, old freak Sui Gu fought with the Lineage of Star head-on. At that time, Hall Master Shi Yun and I teamed up to go after him, and he almost died by our hands. Ever since that battle, this old bastard remained silent and laid low, and he never appeared again. However, who could expect that when he reappeared again, it would actually be in the 6th lair? Moreover, he came across Lei Chao by coincidence. If not for Lei Chao using the secret skill of Star Palace and the secret skill of Dragon Blood to the best of his abilities, there would probably not be an opportunity for him to escape into the Buddhist Demon Sea. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned grave. He had never heard of the old freak Sui Gu before. However, at that time, it was highly possible that Lei Chao had escaped into the Buddhist Demon Sea under his compulsion. After all, some Sir Gods with weaker abilities would travel deep inside the 6th lair, and old freak Sui Gu was probably one of them. Moreover, it just so happened that he had a huge grudge against the Lineage of Star. The Buddhist Demon Sea is unusually dangerous. With Lei Chao's abilities, under a condition where he has lost his 2 trump cards, secret skill of Star Palace and secret skill of Dragon Blood, there is a very low possibility of him surviving. However, fortunately, the space and time of the Buddhist Demon Sea are not completely separated from the outside world. Hence, he can ask for help, and the Lineage of Star can still make it in time to save him, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang heaved a sigh of relief. It was lucky that Lei Chao was not killed by old freak Sui Gu straight away. Although he had entered the Buddhist Demon Sea, there was still a glimmer of hope for him. Lei Chao is an expert of the Lineage of Star, and he has contributed greatly to the Lineage of Star. Since there is a glimmer of hope, The lineage of Star will definitely do its best to save him. However, it's a pity that the palace master has secluded himself in training for the past few years, as he is preparing for something, and he cannot show himself. Presently, Hall Master Shi Yun is traveling deep inside the fifth lair, and he is unable to come out at such short notice. Thus, I can only get the two of you to go there, Hall Master Yuan said. Leave it to us. Hall Master Gu Xan nodded her head. Back then, Lei Chao took very good care of me. Since something bad has happened to him now, I will do my best to rescue him, Jian Wushuang said earnestly. Go ahead. Remember to be extremely careful, Hall Master Yuan warned. Jian Wushuang and Hall Master Gu Xan looked at each other. After that, both of them set off immediately. The two of them did not lose any time. After entering the sixth lair, they traveled speedily and arrived outside the Buddhist Demon Sea in the shortest possible time. This is the Buddhist Demon Sea? Jian Wushuang was looking at a mysterious sea area, which was completely shrouded in black and dense fog in front of him. Even though he had never entered the sea area, by just looking from the outside, Jian Wushuang felt terrified. Let's go in, Hall Master Gu Xan said. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate, and he entered the sea area with Hall Master Gu Xan right away. After entering the sea area, Jian Wushuang felt a strong corrosive power rushing toward him immediately. The corrosive power came from the black, dense fog which filled the air. What a strong corrosive power! Jian Wushuang revealed a shocked expression. He could feel how unreasonable the corrosive power was. Under such a corrosive power, a normal chaotic real god would probably not last very long and they would die. Even top chaotic real gods would probably be unable to last for a long period of time. Although Lei Chao was an expert of the real god ranking list who ranked above 20, he would probably die in at most 100 years' time, if he were to continue staying in the Buddhist Demon Sea. Jian Wushuang, as you are only a real god, are you able to withstand this corrosive power? Hall Master Gu Xan questioned. It would not be a problem for 1,000 years. However, if it were any longer than that, it would be hard to say, Jian Wushuang said. Then let's make the best use of our time, Hall Master Gu Xan said. The two of them flew toward the front immediately. While flying, Jian Wushuang took out his transmission token. Lei Chao, Hall Master Gu Xan and I have arrived in the Buddhist Demon Sea. How are you now? Jian Wushuang questioned. Jian Wushuang, I'm sorry. Back then, I was unable to hurry back to participate in the banquet when you took on the role of a hall master. But now, I need you to come here to rescue me. Lei Chao was filled with regret. Let's not talk about that. How is your current situation? Roughly which direction are you in, and how long can you last? Jian Wushuang asked quickly. I was chased down by old freak Sui Gu, and I had no choice but to escape into the Buddhist Demon Sea. However, old freak Sui Gu also followed me in, and I could only continue to run. Since I was running away madly, I also had no idea where exactly I was. I only know that the place that I am at is a triangular island that is extremely huge, Lei Chao said. A gigantic and triangular island? Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted, and he looked at Hall Master Gu Xan who was beside him. Hall Master Gu Xan, do you know that the triangular island existed? I have no idea. Hall Master Gu Xan shook her head. The Buddhist Demon Sea is not normal, and among the whole Sanctuary Alliance, not many people have traveled inside before. Moreover, the terrain here is extremely peculiar, and probably no one knows where that triangular island is. This is going to be troublesome. Jian Wushuang's expression turned ugly. This was the most troublesome. Both Hall Master Gu Xan and him knew that Lei Chao was trapped in the Buddhist Demon Sea. They also knew that he was in a triangular island. However, since the Buddhist Demon Sea was so huge, who knew where the triangular island was? Moreover, they were also not certain of its direction. There were also no authenticating objects with them. Hence, they could only rely on luck to find Lei Chao. The environment of the Buddhist Demon Sea is peculiar. Although Lei Chao did not say much, I predict that he will probably be unable to last for long. Hence, we need to find him in the shortest possible time. Therefore, Hall Master Guexan, shall we split up? Jian Wushuang suggested. Split up? Hall Master Guexan frowned. However, she still nodded her head. Indeed, if the two of us were to split up, there would be a higher chance of us finding him. However, it would be more dangerous. Jian Wushuang, you really have to be careful. You too. Jian Wushuang looked at Hall Master Guexan. After that, the both of them split up inside the Buddhist demon sea right away. Although they had split up, they were in contact with each other at all times. At the same time as Jian Wushuang and Hall Master Guexan entered the Buddhist demon sea, in the inner part of the Buddhist demon sea, a figure who was covered in a crimson robe revealed a pair of strange gray eyes. Hehe, the fish has taken the bait. Chapter 1732 Triangle Island. Chapter 1732 Triangle Island. Buddhist Demon Sea. At Hidden Void, where four figures in black robes stood side by side, there was a deep voice that was heard under the black robe. Just got an update. Jian Wushuang has already entered Buddhist Demon Sea, and Hall Master Guexan from lineage of Star came in too, but they parted ways. Someone will take care of Hall Master Guexan. We can ignore her. Our target is the one and only Jian Wushuang. Hehe, in order to kill Jian Wushuang, Acheron Palace is liberal with money. The four of us normally take action alone, but they gathered us here together. Plus, they are only launching the first of the 4 killer attacks now. From what I can see, the higher-ups look too highly upon Jian Wushuang. Although he is really talented, his power is barely at the level of a Sir God's. It is unnecessary to make such a great troop to kill him. For killer attacks, and that is only the first, he might not be able to dodge, or there might even not be necessary for the first attack. With the existence of natural danger in Buddhist Demon Sea itself, it will be sufficient to kill Jian Wushuang. Hehe, the four of us arranged to only be involved in the third attacks and above. I reckon we might not stand a chance to launch an attack. The four of them chatted casually. As they chatted, they were absolutely confident. Acheron Palace wouldn't take action. If they did, the other party would stand almost no chance at all to flee. Then Acheron Palace put great attention on Jian Wushuang and planned it meticulously. They had even prepared 4 killer attacks. Jian Wushuang was doomed. In the boundless dark sea, Jian Wushuang continued to plunge forward slowly as he looked around while he kept his guard up. Buddhist Demon Sea is extremely dangerous to Sir Gods. Although Lei Chao was chased after by old monster Sui Gu, and he ran to Buddhist Demon Sea helplessly, he definitely won't be too far in. He should still be at the border of Buddhist Demon Sea. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. Buddhist Demon Sea. There was a difference between open sea and inland sea. Inland sea was more dangerous compared to open sea. What I can do now is search along the open sea and hope that I can find him, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. As long as he was on the open sea, Jian Wushuang stood a chance to save Lei Chao. If Lei Chao were to be at the inland sea, Jian Wushuang had no way at all. Jian Wushuang continued to plunge as he spread his soul power. However, his soul power was greatly restricted in Buddhist Demon Sea, and the coverage was less than 1/5 of his performance during his peak. Hence, the difficulty of searching had increased tremendously. 10 days after entering Buddhist Demon Sea, swoosh, Jian Wushuang's body suddenly stopped. He saw a crimson figure in the sea region before him in his sights. It was the size of a human body, with a pair of hands and legs. Its skin was crimson, and there was an eye and a big mouth on its head. It was a star demon that could only be found in the 8th layer. However, the star demon in front of him, and was obviously much stronger than any star demons that Jian Wushuang had ever seen. On its head there were 4 horns. 4-horned star demon. A star demon comparable to a human Sir God. As Jian Wushuang saw the star demon, its crimson eye looked at Jian Wushuang directly. Human. With boundless murderous intention in the voice of the star demon, it instantly charged forward in the next moment. Then there was a great rage that soared up. Jian Wushuang's face grew solemn. He knew that there were star demons in Buddhist Demon Sea, and the power of the star demons were extremely strong overall. Such four-horned star demon was common. Wow! The crimson light twinkled. Then, the four-horned star demon suddenly appeared before Jian Wushuang. It waved its palm and clawed the sky. Not only the void was torn open, the dark sea underneath was greatly torn as well. Such intense speed. Jian Wushuang was surprised and he quickly retreated. The sharp claw came to nothing, but it stirred up a violent storm and roaring waves in the sea below. Humph! Jian Wushuang humphed coldly. Then the two Hongjun golden swords appeared in front of him simultaneously and turned into two rays of golden flowing light that burst out. Swoosh! Swoosh! The ear-piercing, air-splitting noise spread. The two Hongjun golden swords appeared before the four-horned star demon and instantly hit the four-horned star demon. The Hongjun golden swords hit it brutally, while four-horned star demon swung its pair of arms with its all. Bang! 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 After the few clashes that only continued for 5 times, one of the two Hongjun golden swords pierced the four-horned star demon's head at the 6th hit. Jian Wushuang took a leap and came in front of the four-horned star demon. He waved and collected the demon core into his Qian Kuan ring. The four-horned star demon should have just transformed not too long ago. Its power is comparable to the lowest level of Sir God, or maybe even lower. With my current power, it is quite easy to kill him, Jian Wushuang muttered. He wasn't like before. Among Sir Gods, he was definitely one of the stronger experts. However, the four-horned star demons had reminded Jian Wushuang to be more cautious. The time flew past and 3 years passed in the blink on an eye. For 3 years, Jian Wushuang had continued to keep in contact with Lei Chao and Hall Master Gu Exan. But he had yet to find the Triangle Island that Lei Chao was at. They had no choice. Buddhist Demon Sea was extremely huge, and merely the open sea itself was spacious. A Sir God might not be able to search through the entire region in 1,000 years. Jian Wushuang and Hall Master Gu Exan knew the rough direction which Lei Chao had entered Buddhist Demon Sea in, and they got to minimize their search scope. However, it was still not easy to look for Lei Chao. In the boundless dark sea, Jian Wushuang was suddenly attracted by the miniature island in front of him. It was an ordinary island, and it wasn't huge. In the 3 years of Jian Wushuang's search in Buddhist Demon Sea, he couldn't keep count of how many similar islands he had passed by. Any island that he had passed before didn't catch his attention, only this did. That was because Jian Wushuang saw a big hole in the middle of the island. The big hole was obviously caused by a hit of divine power. And most importantly, the time that it was formed wasn't too far back. Buddhist Demon Sea, there is hardly anyone that comes in. It is even more impossible for there to be a battle. The hole on the island was definitely made when old monster Sui Gu chased after Lei Chao. Lei Chao is definitely near the island. Jian Wushuang was thrilled. He then started to search thoroughly near the island. The search continued for another 11 years. Finally, there was an extremely huge triangle island that appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Found it! Jian Wushuang clenched his fists. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.